Are you tired of the same old pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on Powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 4,000 hours of the best pro wrestling events from over 110 of the biggest names in the industry from over 15 countries around the globe. Get your free trial today at Powerslam.tv.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Don't you want to sound rich?
Welcome to episode 16 of your favorite podcast about all things elite. Welcome to All Things Elite on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. I am your host, Floyd Johnson, and with me today, filling in for a very sick Amy Euler, is from Keepin It Strong Style, the Youngboy Josh Smith. How you doing, Youngboy?
Listen, man, that was an incredible introduction. We went through like 3 or 4 of them here off the air. No one else knows that, but I'm going to spoil it because I'm peeling back the curtain. But I am so glad to be on this show right now. Dude,
those first like 3 attempts were so jacked. And it's like I knew exactly what I wanted to say, but it just wouldn't come out. I was like, I'm well rested. I'm not overly excited. I'm sitting here with a blanket on in my living room. So I was like, why can't I get this out? Why can't I get this shit out?
The strange thing is, once I gave you a reminder that there's more than one royal family in wrestling, you nailed it.
Because you know what? You reminded me that today is 5-Star Friday, and Cody has a new nickname, which is Cody 5 Stars. So, I told you. You know, I told you this morning on our chat.
Oh my God.
This is gonna be like this episode. I needed you on to keep me down because if it was just me, it was gonna be one long victory lap. So I was like, I need Josh to, keep me under control here.
You're definitely gonna need to take that victory lap because I've definitely been in a live audience where I have chanted at Cody 3-star savior.
Man, you understand how many arguments where it's just like me versus 6 other people telling me how much he is average. So it's like, oh my God. I was like, when I saw it, and I was like, I know everyone has their favorite wrestlers, but it's just like, when I saw that he got the 5 stars, you saw that was like the first post, and I posted it everywhere. Put it on Twitter, Facebook, all my wrestling groups. I texted a few people that I knew directly. I told you. No, but yeah, we will definitely get to that. But let's start off by reminding you that this show is brought to you by Powerslam TV. Powerslam TV, where you can get access to over 4,000 hours of content from over 110 of your favorite wrestling brands from countries all around the globe onto your laptop or mobile device. If you use the code Social Suplex, you get your first month free. Yes, definitely do Powerslam TV. But this week on the show, we don't have a lot of topics, but the topics we have will take a long time to talk about. So we're starting off, of course, with Double or Nothing. and then we are going to talk about the big debut here, there, in an interview. And last but not least, we had a couple superstars, a couple wrestlers signed this week. Superstars is the WWE's term, so we're just going to call our people wrestlers, which is awesome. Yeah, but again, Amy is under the weather after our Las Vegas trip. We got to meet there. We're going to talk about the trip next week. And I was like, you know what? I need someone to even this show out. So I called the podcast legend. He might be called Youngboy, but he is a veteran. Josh. Yes. So Josh is gonna give me a more even keel take on all of wrestling, which I definitely need him from him, because I'm like, everything I do is at like a level 15. So I need somebody to bring that down a little bit.
well, first and foremost, best wishes and get well soon go out to Amy. Isn't she like just such a sweetheart, man?
Dude. Yeah, I mean, and I was gonna tell her that it's everything. When you listen to her on it, you like, there's no way someone can be this positive, this happy, and have this much energy. And it's like, then you meet her and you like, she's everything that she comes across on the show, and she is the lovely person. She like brings you in like you're part of the family like immediately. So definitely, it was awesome meeting her.
Did you meet her husband?
Dude, yes. Have you met him?
Yeah, he's awesome.
Dude, I'm not trying to just put him over here because people tend to when they meet someone, but he has this coolness about him. I don't know if you okay. I was thinking about this earlier. You're a little younger than me. Have you ever seen the movie Fast Times at Ridgemont High?
Of course.
Okay, I'm just making sure, dude. I don't know. No, but
I'm a cinephile, so I see everything.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, Spicoli's telling his friend, his friend's like, his friend's kind of asking him how to be to attract a girl, and he's like, You gotta go into every room, like wherever you are is the place to be. Yeah. That's the best way to describe him. That's the best way to describe Amy's husband. Wherever he is kind of the place to be.
Yeah, they have two totally different but complementary energies about them, and really, really cool couple. I got to meet them in New York, and I really appreciate both of them. I was saying she needs to get him on her podcast, and she was saying, that she had plans in the works to do that, and he was all, being like, we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just like, I'm like, yeah, if you follow his Twitter, he asks really good questions. I saw some stuff today, and I was like, dude, I need you to be running the All Things Elite Twitter, because he asks these really good questions, thought-provoking questions that get a lot of people reacting, and it's like, man, these are really good. But yeah, we were walking through the MGM Grand, and me and her are just talking because we're the talkers, and he's just like, and he just throw in a comment every now and then, and it was just like, okay, it was exactly what was supposed to be said at that moment. It's very weird. It was like, kind of got a man crush. I'm just gonna be honest.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that you don't have the same kind of blessing that I do, in that I've got a Jeremy Donovan to run the Keepin It Strong Style, social media, everything. Because if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have social media. I'd pretty much be non-existent. We'd have no listeners, and I'd just be recording and then probably deleting every episode, not even uploading it, basically.
Yeah. Well, you know me, I work at night, so it just seems like I'm a really creepy dude, because all of my messages are between like 10 p.m. and 6 a.m.
Listen, Floyd, I've met you several times now, and the last word I would use to describe you is creepy.
Well, yeah, I have a lot of energy. I'll just say that.
That's true. That I can concur.
Yes. But the first show, the blessing, for everyone that is tuning in for the first time, I thank you for giving us a shot. We are going to talk about, some wrestling now. But first, I promised a contest. This June, or tomorrow, is my birthday month. I was born on June 10th, 1981. And because of that, I want to, instead of getting a whole bunch of crap, I like to give stuff away for my birth month. So this week it will be a $50 gift card to Pro Wrestling Tees. I am not going to really put the instructions on Twitter on how to enter this contest because I want people to listen to the show. That's the whole point. But I'm going to post the show in the Saturday morning. When you'll see this post, make sure you're following at AT Elite Pod. That's following our Twitter. You have to be a follower to win. Retweet, comment. Basically comment with who impressed you most from Double or Nothing. That's how I'll know you actually listen to the show. You will comment with who impressed you most from Double or Nothing, and you will be entered. And next Friday, right before I record, I'll draw a name and announce the name on the show. And because they make it so easy, Pro Wrestling Tees, I will email you directly your $50 gift card, and you can use it to buy some Keepin It Strong Style or Social Suplex swag.
If my answer is either Hikaru Shida or Brandy, is that gonna be held against me?
No, it's not gonna be held against you. Oh, dude, the Josie match, I will tell you live, I honestly didn't get really an impression, but I watched it. I definitely watched the show back over the last day or two, and man, those chicks can work. Oh God, yeah. I'm gonna definitely glow about all of them when I get there. That match. I don't think live did it. I know the live people enjoyed it, but for me, live didn't do it as much justice as on TV because those are some athletic chicks.
Absolutely. We're gonna get into that. It's funny you mention your contest because I was thinking to myself for a moment. I was like, man, I'm so impressed with Floyd. He's doing these contests, bringing more awareness to the show and the network. Why don't we do that? And then I thought to myself, wait, we are doing that.
Yes, because. I am Social Suplex, dude. Every time it's like follow Social Suplex. When you listen, you follow Social Suplex. Y'all are me.
What I mean is my show actually is running a contest, but I forgot that we were running a contest. It's not. We're not taking new entrants, but we are running a bracket contest for the best Super Juniors. Which the winner of that will get credit to the Pro Wrestling Tees store, or I think we're actually just buying them a shirt. But there's only 2 more shows left, and only I won't give away any spoilers. If you want to check it out, you can check out my show at Keepin It Strong Style. But I will say that the tournament has turned out almost verbatim exactly how me and Jeremy predicted it would turn out just 2 weeks ago. So. A little bit of a victory lap on that one. Yeah,
not only am I part of Soul Suplex, I am an avid listener to your show. So yes, it has. It actually the matches have been amazing. What I've gotten to see, I've only watched about half of the matches here and there. Especially when y'all say a match is amazing, I will go and watch it pretty much immediately because it's just during this weird time where I was doing a whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah, it's basically you were the spoiler alert in this situation. You said, hey, this is what's going to happen. And it's kind of played exactly out like that. And
I do know one thing that I just want to take a victory lap right now. I said 3 weeks ago that Ryosuke Taguchi would get 10 or 12 points by the end of this tournament. And we are going into the final night. He has 12 points. People said I was crazy. I didn't know what I was talking about. And yeah. And tomorrow I'm going to be recording, the final Best Super Junior show, regarding that. Rich Latta, who is the co-host of One Nation Radio and one of the figureheads here at Social Suplex, he told me, he's like, yo, you're back on your bullshit. Why are you trying to, sell off this Taguchi shit once again? And I said, bro, just listen. And when he comes on the show, I'm going to make him do exactly what Chris Jericho was unable to get the Elite to do. He's going to apologize to me.
And thank you for being a part of the Social Suplex and bringing everyone in to listen. That's what he should thank you. Thank you.
Thank me for bringing everybody.
You are the reason. You are the reason.
I got to tell you, I feel very confident that the majority of the people who listen to our show, the babyface on that show is definitely Jeremy Donovan.
Oh,
like that's who they tune in for.
You were flat out called the other guy 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, someone called me the other guy. He's like, yeah. Like, they didn't even know who – they didn't know for sure that they're even talking to Jeremy, but they're just like, I got a question for the other guy. Like, what?
I laughed. I had to press pause. And immediately message Jeremy. I was like, he's the other guy. Oh, man, that's crazy. The other guy, Josh Smith. That's your other – you got a new nickname. You know, on Voices of Wrestling, they go through all of – dude, why am I now? Joe Lanza's all his nicknames. You got a second one now.
How can I get I want to get a nickname like him, the Kenta Kobashi of sex.
It's kind of weird because I met Kenta Kobashi and I'm like,
did you say you're the Joe Lanza for Rezu?
I should have. But I looked at him and I was just like, that's the guy. Because me, Purezu for me started just like 3 years ago. So Kenta Kobashi was before my time.
Oh God, bro, you have to watch Kenta Kobashi. Do yourself a favor. You know what would be a really good introduction match for you and any listeners out there? If you're not too up on Noah, you're not too up on 90s All Japan, just watch his match with Samoa Joe from Ring of Honor in 2006. In my opinion, it's the greatest Ring of Honor match of all time. And him and Samoa Joe, that's like the best introductory match you could probably get to Kenta Kobashi.
Man, you just say Samoa Joe to me and go watch Samoa Joe. I'm down. I will definitely have to find that show.
Yeah, do it. You can find it online for free. It's out there.
My brother just sent me a message, and he does not keep up with wrestling as much as everybody else does. Doesn't listen to podcasts as much as everyone else does. But he asked me, did Shane buy AEW?
We started joking. We had a big party here at Strong Style Dojo. About 9 different buddies from. We got our own Facebook group called the Largo Loop. Because we're out here on the Largo Loop, so a lot of us attend those NXT shows. And we had about 9 guys here, which was really awesome. And I made a joke right before the show started. I was like, what if when the show starts, Vince shows up on the telecast and he's like, like basically the last Nitro essentially. And like people were like, oh my God. I was like, what if this man just flat out was like, I don't want competition. I'm buying this shit. It's over.
You know what? When you try to buy something for someone, you should probably have more money than them, that would probably be a thing. So I don't think
you're right.
It's like Cons would be like, we have more money than you. We're good. Our stuff isn't based on ratings. We have a product and that we sell a lot of. Man, they are. Yeah, I like. It was funny because I've already heard of Tony Khan. I mean, not Tony Khan, Shad Khan. Because I'm a big NFL fan, of course, and I had no idea, how much money they had. I was like, what?
Yeah.
When I started this show, I was like, learn more. And I was like, good Lord. Yeah, they could be WWE like ×2 if they wanted to be. So
it reminds me of that old Chris Rock skit where he was like, Shaq is rich. The old white man who writes his checks, he's wealthy.
Yes.
There's different levels to this stuff. Like Vince McMahon is wealthy, but in terms of him and the Khans, Vince is rich.
Yes.
The Khans are wealthy.
Yes. Yeah. They would be like they would have to lose like seriously 2/3 of their wealth to get down to where Vince is. So that is crazy to me. That's crazy because I can't even fathom $100 million. You know what I mean? Having $100 million, I couldn't even fathom that. That's just ridiculous. Yeah, and he's like, oh, they have billions of dollars. I'm like, what do you do with that? It's just like you just have it at that point.
You rule.
Yeah.
But I'm excited, man. Nobody really has tried to reach out to me to get my takes or my views on this show, and obviously it's something I wanted to discuss, but it's not something that we'd be able to go super in depth on my show. So I'm very, very glad to be a part of this, and honored that you bring me.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm honored to have you.
Yeah, I'm honored to be back. Hopefully, this show goes well. But I did want to say, actually, I forgot what I was going to say, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. What I was going to say was, it's awesome because even though you watched the show on the pay-per-view, you were there live, and obviously I watched it on the pay-per-view, so we get kind of different perspectives, and I'm really interested to kind of hear what your takes were, being that you experienced everything, up close and, in color.
Yeah, and most of my takes will be from a live perspective because, I mean, that was the first way I viewed it, and I want to just kind of give thoughts on what I saw, everything, and what I was thinking when a lot of this stuff happened because, quite a bit happened on this show, and it was good. But
Absolutely.
So we're starting off with buy-in. Buy-in was the pre-show. We jumped right in. We had a little confusion at the beginning because I couldn't tell actually when the show started. Personally, there was 5 guys in the ring, and then they said their names, and I was like, okay. Then they started wrestling, so I was like, oh, okay, that's when it started. The 5 guys in the ring were Brandon Cutler, Sunny Days, Michael Nakazawa, Dustin Thomas, and MJF. Those are the 5 guys. Brandon Cutler got a huge pop. I don't know if that came across on YouTube when they or YouTube or however you watched it. As soon as they said his name, like he came out, he got a huge pop.
Yeah, so I actually didn't even get to see this portion of the show. We came in about halfway through the Battle Royal. We were trying to watch it on the BR app as well as on YouTube, and it just said like it was waiting for the show to air, and it wasn't airing. So then we decided to try and order it online. By the time we jumped in online, it was about halfway through. So I don't know if there were some small technical issues in the beginning, but yeah, like we jumped in about halfway, through from my perspective.
Okay. Well, we had the clubs in the ring. They started wrestling. We had a spot with Sunny Days and Michael Nakazawa where Michael Nakazawa poured oil on himself and slid out.
I love that.
Yes. I had never seen what Michael Nakazawa does. I am one of those people. I hated comedy wrestling until I saw how Japanese people do it.
Yes.
It is so much better.
Did you see?
Yeah.
Did you see the CEO show last year?
No, I didn't.
Gotcha. Yeah, if you should probably check that out, especially not the whole show, but at least the match between him and who's the guy that runs CEO?
Alex Jabali.
Yeah, you should watch the match between him and Alex Jabali because it'll give you some insight more to Nakazawa, what they're going to be doing with him going forward. Because they're really playing off of that match a lot.
Okay.
But Nakazawa, man, like he's an entertainer.
Yeah, I didn't watch that. I remember I didn't watch that show because Cody wasn't on it. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
I was like, nope, Cody's not on it. I'm good.
I was actually in attendance. I was in the audience live last year, and I'd seen Nakazawa, but Rich, James, and Jeremy had not. And he was one of the things that we ended up talking about the most after we left, just because he was so, like, such a heat magnet, such a comedy guy. Like, he was so enthralling. Like, he's very, 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 very funny.
Yeah, he is very energetic, charismatic. It's a different type of it factor, but he definitely has that ick factor. It's like his face makes you want to look at him. You know what I mean? And see what he's gonna do. He's very expressive. So I definitely I dig the Nakazawa. I do. I was like I'm a fan. I'm in. I'm with you. So definitely that MJF. Oh my God. He in a lot of ways. He reminds me of Kevin Owens and Stone Cold because he never shuts up when he's wrestling, and he just and he says the worst things to people, and like everybody's wondering who's gonna attack Dustin Thomas first, and there was no question. It was like within a second he's stomping the crap out of him. So I am a big MJF guy as far as his character and the fact that he like stays in character and never comes out. He is just one of the most fun people to me.
That's a guy who's going to make a lot of money in this industry.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you're willing to be hated, you're going to make a ton of money, and he has no interest in being cheered. There is, it's like if you start to cheer him, he will remind you why you should hate him.
It's funny because we kind of exist in this small bubble. Not to say that we've secluded ourselves when it comes to our fandom, but we can only have so many different friends in the industry that we're kind of close with, and so your perspective about wrestling is kind of skewed based on who you're connected with. And the one thing that I consistently hear just amongst my friends who interacted with him, who know him, is that this guy, when he's in character, which is always, he's a jerk. He's always a jerk to you no matter what show you're at, no matter what setting it's in, whether it's, at a PWG, a local indie show, out on the street, at a big, at a meet and greet. It does not matter. This guy lives his gimmick. Like, he's the modern day Nikita Koloff, basically.
Absolutely. It's performance art at its finest and its most pure. I met him at StarCast last year. He literally wouldn't even touch my hand. He made me put the money directly in his wallet. He wouldn't even. Yes,
that is awesome.
He wouldn't even touch my hand because I was filthy. And he grabs the phone and does the selfie for me, and then does pure. He gives me my phone back and then does Purell right after it, just bathes in Purell because he touched my phone.
That's so awesome.
Oh God, it was just such a moment that I'll be able to tell people forever because he's just. He's that good. It's I tell people, I'm like, people can be nice to you in kind of that generic way, and you won't remember the meet and greet. But, he was a dick to me, and I will never forget that. And that was awesome about him. The next group of people were the Diamonds. There was some kind of hiccup here, because in the ring, and they announced that the Diamonds, they did the countdown, and there was a full 30 seconds to a minute before anyone actually came out. So you had Isaiah Cassidy from Private Party come out, and then Brian Pillman Jr. comes out. He kind of tries to jump in front of him, and then Brian Pillman just super kicks him. And then this Jimmy Havoc, Joey Janela. Joey Janela got a super loud pop, and then coming and I know it was supposed to be because they were coming out 5 at a time. There was this super space between Joey Janela, and then you see a guy come out with a towel on it and it has a 10, and it's Sean Spears.
So he came out with the 10 gimmick.
Yeah, he had a 10 on his shirt. Shirt, and then on the hooded towel, throws the towel off and then puts up 10, and everybody's like 10. Got 10.
Yes, I hadn't seen this part yet, so I wasn't aware that he came out with the gimmick.
Yeah, he definitely came out with the gimmick. Even on his thing, it's perfection with a 10 in the name where I and O are.
Gotcha.
So yeah, he's definitely the 10 thing. And the crowd went crazy. This was the first. I wouldn't call it surprise, but it was the first. He came out at 10 because, there were 5 people out there. Then he came out last of the second. So he was he was clearly 10.
I wondered about that because of the staggered nature of the entries. I was like, if he's in the Battle Royal, how will he come out at the 10 spot if they're doing whole groups? That doesn't make sense to me. So that makes a little bit more sense that you're saying they gave him a bit of shine, basically.
Oh, definitely gave him shine. Of course, once they got in the ring, there was some good old fighting, and we got a spot where Joey Janela smoking a cigarette, and then Jimmy Havoc staples the cigarette to his head, to Joey Janela's head.
I didn't even see this part. It sounds like there's a lot that I missed, and I didn't think I missed that much, but apparently I did.
A lot of people honestly, this pre-show, a lot of people hated it. I thought, I was live, and I thought it was amazing. But
I definitely have criticisms, and I don't think it came across well on the pay-per-view, but I figure we should go through the match first before I kind of unload some of my criticisms.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, live it was kind of clunky, and then when I watched it, I saw it after the feed was already recorded, so you can tell they kind of cleaned up some of the stuff. So it's like I didn't get that live feed like a lot of people did. But I know no one I know saw the whole pre-show that watched it on TV. Like at first, they had to go back and watch it again. Then the Hearts came in. This is Billy Gunn, Glacier. Billy Gunn got a good pop. Jungle Boy. Mark Quinn, no one knew who he was, but he's the other guy in Private Party. And Ace Romero, AC Baby came out.
AC Baby.
Yeah, and of course there was not a lot of people got eliminated. I think at this point, Nakazawa was the only person that got eliminated. Once this group got in, that's when you got some other people starting to get eliminated. And then the last group that comes in is the Spades, which is Luchasaurus, Marco Stunt, Sonny Kiss. Marco Stunt does look like a child. I saw him all weekend, and I kept thinking he was someone's kid. It was finally Sunday where I recognized, oh, he is a wrestler. Tommy Dreamer and Orange Cassidy. Because I only thought he was someone's kid because he was always with the wrestlers. But he's so remarkably smaller than everyone, even the women. It was kind of, weird. It's whose son is he? And no. But Orange Cassidy comes out, and Tommy Dreamer gets this pop, and Orange Cassidy's behind him, but he's walking so slow. I think everybody's in the ring and they're wrestling, and Orange Cassidy is just kind of walking around the ring. He's just yeah. And believe me, because he did that, people that were in the audience, next to me, they didn't know, they kept asking because they kept, I'm a talker, so, they kept asking me, oh, who is that guy? And I kept saying, and this guy was everything about this. And I'm I should, because I do this podcast, because I'm it's kind of
Did you tell them you were I run the best AEW podcast on the internet, and here's where you can follow me, and then do that sort of thing?
No, I didn't. I did tell them I run a show called All Things Elite. They should look it up. It's on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Pick it up on that, because I don't like to some people when they do a podcast are annoyingly aggressive, and especially at the show where they can't walk away from me. I try to just be kind of casual about it.
You got to put yourself over, bro.
I mean, I said it's a great show. They got that I like. I knew a lot, but I just what? I like people not to be in jail with me. You can't leave. You're in your seat. So I just try not to do that. It was, it's weird. I'm very self-conscious about, being annoying. I try not to be, because I want everyone to enjoy the show, and I don't want anyone to be well, I really enjoyed Double or Nothing, but there was this loud guy that just would not shut the fuck up. So I don't want to be that guy. So I don't know. But yeah, they asked me a lot of questions, so I did give them a lot of information. Once I found out they were cool and they wanted to know the information, I was okay, I can talk a lot more. And then we have the Joker, and the Joker, to the surprise of no one, especially listening to this show, was Hangman Page. And he came out, his music hit, and half the crowd knew who it was. And then, there was this sorrow part that once he jumped out, everybody all the AEW, elite fans cheered, and then everyone else knew they should cheer. So it was kind of a double wave of cheering.
Yeah.
It was oh, we should cheer this guy that we didn't know who he was. So it was a big loud pop for Hangman. And honestly, this is pretty much a battle royal squash match at this point, because once he came in, it was the battle royal started. He just kind of eliminated everybody.
Yeah, we jumped in around the time that all the final entrants were, I guess, coming into the ring. I have heard people actually criticize Hangman Page's music, saying that it's kind of a generic tone. But I gotta tell you, ever since he came out with that new music, I don't remember when it was, but last year, I've loved it, man. I love, and maybe I'm alone on this, but I love Hangman Page's music. I it reminds me of the spaghetti western, videos or like movies that I love from like the 60s and 70s. And I think it fits his character really well, but people seem to not know, associate that with him or even or even like it, I guess.
I love his music. I love it. It's unique to what everyone else is doing. Everyone is generally some kind of, rock, kind of trying to, amped up type thing. And his is very old school. I mean, it reminds me like Barry Windham coming to the ring kind of thing. It was just like, he's rocking the boots and he's going to come out and do some athletic stuff. And it's, I love his music. I think it just basically tells you who's coming. The Hangman's coming.
I do think, well, I don't know. I hadn't thought about this even being a take on the show, but I kind of wonder if he should get away from the Hangman gimmick. I guess they have distanced themselves from it. Like, he's not really carrying like a rope to the ring anymore. But it's also kind of like Hangman Page is who he is. Yeah. So it's like you don't want to like change that, but at the same time, it's like there was a time when he first started coming out with the rope and he was the Hangman. I was like, I don't know about this one.
I wouldn't buy a shirt because it had a noose on it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I told him that. Like when I met him, I was like, yeah, me walking around with a shirt with a noose on it, not a good look. And so that's not gonna happen. And then they put out the one where it's his, but it has the bandana on it, and that's the first one I bought. But
I wouldn't buy a shirt either, but that's just because I don't really buy that many wrestling shirts. So
yeah, I'm over 300 at this point.
Oh my gosh. They yeah. But there was a lot of memorable spots once the action really picked up in this.
Dustin Thomas.
Oh, go ahead with Dustin Thomas. Yeah.
Yeah, he did a 619 type thing and then he did like with the rope assisted, I guess that would be a 450. I guess. I don't know, but it was pretty awesome. He is amazingly athletic.
That was cool. Ace Romero did a huge dive to the outside that I think a lot of people probably weren't expecting from a guy his size if they haven't seen him before.
Yeah, he got to do his pounce gimmick. They did get that gimmick.
Oh, I thought he was gonna kill. Who was it that he did that to?
Was that Marco Stunt?
Yeah, it was Marco Stunt. I knew it was Marco Stunt. I just forget names. Yeah, I thought he was going to kill Marco Stunt. Like, he's so lucky those guys caught him.
I was going to say Private Party had the play of the day with that save on him.
Yeah, that was nuts. There was the spot in the corner with Sonny Kist where he was pulling Tommy Dreamer into his butt, basically, which was...
Jim Cornette was not a fan of that.
I haven't listened to anything Jim thought about this show yet. I've heard that he pretty much buried a lot of
my God. He it's one of those things where you lose credence when you tell me I didn't want to watch the show because I knew I was going to hate it. Yeah. So it's like, if you go into a show then deciding that you're already going to hate it, you're going to hate it. He actually said the same thing about the AEW fans. He's like, the people that liked it went into the show, decided that they were going to like it. And I was like, I think that is correct. And I think he's the opposite of that. He decided he was going to hate it. There's no money in his show liking it. If he came out and said how much he liked the wrestling and all that stuff, I wouldn't listen to it because I've listened to his show 2 or 3 times in my whole life. And the fact is, I listened to this episode because I heard how much he buried the show.
Well, you know what? Everybody has different tastes, that sort of thing. I really love listening to Jim Cornette. I don't do it all the time, but Jim has, in a lot of ways, perspectives that I appreciate, and there's a lot that I like about him. But there's other times where I think that he's stuck in his ways, which is funny because in '82, Jim was seen as a progressive and, revolutionary and someone who is akin to like the kind of taste that we have where like, we are fans of this revolutionary wrestling style. That's how he was back then. But, times change and, yeah.
Like I said, there's no money in agreeing. He's Skip Bayless. He's Woody Page. I mean, people listen to his show because he buried it today. If he came out just and took the same take as everybody else, that was a really good wrestling show and wished them the best and kind of even, like very positive and even, there's no money in that.
as far as this battle royal goes, any final thoughts or anything you want to walk us through?
No. I actually did have a bit of a problem. I keep it positive. My biggest problem is that there was no one other than Hangman Page that could win this. There was no other legitimate contender, and it was like when Hangman's music hit, you're like, oh, he's winning it, and it was just
I agree.
It was like there was nothing there. It was like it was a battle royal, but it was kind of like the winner was never in doubt.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it basically ended up coming down to a final four of Luchasaurus, MJF, Hangman Page, and was it Joey Janela?
Jimmy Havoc.
Jimmy Havoc. Prior to those final four, though, there was a moment where Luchasaurus, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention it, where he choke slammed Joey Janela outside of the ring onto a table, and I legitimately thought that Joey Janela was dead.
Yeah, that table exploded. It exploded. Luchasaurus, I will say he was definitely a big addition to this because he just looks different. He's like so much taller and physically, and then you see him move, and he can move. I was definitely a fan of Luchasaurus after this match.
I've seen Luchasaurus in ROH as well as Lucha Underground, and I'm not a fan of the gimmick. I think it's a very limiting gimmick. Although, WWE got over an undead zombie mortician gimmick, and it became like the most endearing gimmick they've ever had. So who knows? I might be an idiot. But at the same time, he's so imposing, and not just that, but he can really do a lot of cool moves. Like, he really is a cool wrestler when you actually see him live and what he can do and the spinning crescent kicks and everything else. But I do wonder how far he can go with that gimmick in Major League Wrestling in general,
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think some of these people, if they're sticking around, I know a lot of these people were one shot. I think there will be some definitely gimmick adjustments. And I think he's one of the people that will get a gimmick adjustment. Like I said, I really did. I enjoyed it. It was a battle royal. Battle royals to me are like pizza. Even bad ones are still battle royals. It's still good. I enjoy them. But like I said, the biggest and only criticism I had is that to me it was Hangman Page and then everyone else.
Well, I actually have a few criticisms here, and I mean. Some of the things that I felt like were problematic. One of the things was the winner of this match was originally going to. What was the gimmick going to originally be? They were going to face Hangman for a shot at the title.
They were going to get a future title shot.
Oh, they were automatically going to get a future title shot. Okay, and so was that always the gimmick, or I thought it changed?
That was always the gimmick. It was a future title shot. It wasn't going to. You probably weren't going to be the first challenger, but you were going to get a future title shot.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So, you talked in depth last week about Pac and the Hangman controversy and what happened there. Who was going to win this, provided, prior to this, that Hangman wasn't in the match?
If I had to guess. Once if you take Hangman out of it, I'm looking at my people are of course Joey Janela, Jimmy Havoc, MJF, or Sean Spears. That would be my four.
Those are probably the right picks, and you're probably right on that. Again, like I said, I joined this in progress when we started watching it, but there's a few things I didn't like about it. One was I did not like the entire structure of how they brought the guys out. When they first announced the gimmick and the using the cards and it being Vegas themed and all that, I was actually very on board, and I didn't say anything disparaging about it because I thought they were trying something new, and I was like, oh, this is a pretty cool idea, and it might make things move faster. But ultimately, it ended up being something where I felt like the guys that came out in big groups, it didn't lend itself to allowing, A, the wrestlers that come out to be known individually. B, it didn't add to the structure of the match. It actually made it clunkier and kind of more like sort of like it was just rushed, if that makes sense. Those would probably be my main like issues with that aspect of it. When you kind of compare that to like say a Royal Rumble or like what Lucha Underground used to do with like or what Aztec Warfare, each guy would come out and kind of get their own shine and get their own spot. And I feel like with a lot of these guys being indie talents that are lesser known, that people are not familiar with, you kind of need, at least I feel like it would have been beneficial in this instance for them to kind of get established who their characters were, who they were, that sort of thing. And they kind of missed the ball on that. It felt more similar to like one of those World War III matches from WCW where everyone just comes out and you don't know who's in the match. And I felt like a lot of people didn't know who these guys were at all.
Yeah, Private Party was definitely a victim of this. No one knew who Private Party was. Before the match, after the match, they still don't know who Private Party is. So, I mean, I guess with them losing, that won't hurt them. But, yeah, I think they were a victim of how people came out. They were like, people were like, who's that guy? And then one guy's name is Mark Quinn. So it was like, his name is so normal. He didn't stick out at all. So I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
A couple other problems with it was, like you mentioned, once Hangman Page came out, it kind of seemed like he was the de facto winner, or like, you know, the odds-on favorite to win at that point. But they didn't seem to have clued in the commentary team to the fact that there would be a 20-second entry after the Joker. So they made all this, they made a big deal about there being a Joker, but then they included Hangman Page. And it kind of makes sense why they did, because they had to kind of call an audible based on the changes to the card. But the commentary team didn't seem to know about that sort of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was supposed to be kind of playing off the fact that Cody just added someone and didn't tell anyone.
That's also something that I think people would, and I have questions about that going forward, is like, you know, as far as like an authority figure on screen, how much autonomy, you know, the Bucks, Cody, you know, Kenny, how that, and also Brandy, how that's all going to work. But it does seem kind of like one of those fast and loose things where it's like, oh, Cody added, you know, Hangman. That just kind of seemed all over the place. One other thing, too, a small criticism, and it kind of cleared up once the actual show started. But when we turned this on, the production value was not as good. The camera crew, and I cut them a little bit of slack because it was the first match on a first show that they've ever done. But they were missing a lot of the spots, a lot of the action. And they were cutting camera cuts like they were WWE. Like every 2 seconds there was a camera cut. And it was like egregiously bad in the beginning. It cleared up by the time the main pay-per-view came on, but it was all over the place. And when we were watching this, you know, as a group, we were very excited. When we started watching it, we were like, ooh, this does not look very good, to be honest.
And that has been a lot of opinions. I pretty much listened to every Double or Nothing review I could preparing for this one, just because I wanted to hear as many different takes that I could. And that's been common. That's been common. Everyone's like, well, like a lot of people, they're like, if I watch this in anticipation and like, okay, I'm going to watch this, and if I like it, I'm going to order a pay-per-view. Most of them said they wouldn't have ordered the pay-per-view. But
I would agree with that. We'd already ordered the pay-per-view, and we had our mind made up, but this didn't really, as a first offering, endear me to the company. A lot of the wrestlers, even if you kind of knew who they were, it's hard to be super familiar with everybody that was in that match. Many of them did not come off like stars. They kind of came off as like the lower mid-card jags of the company, and it didn't seem like you mentioned that any of them would be capable of winning the title. And I feel like you could have rectified that by maybe doing a different structure. I do applaud them for trying something new, but I wouldn't advise them. If it was my company, I wouldn't do this match structure the way they did in the future, especially considering how well the All-In, the All-Out, quote-unquote, Battle Royal went during All-In. That was, like, to me, an incredible Battle Royal, whereas this came off as being very much less than. it didn't really endear me to the company right off the bat. And I mean, that's just my initial take on it.
Yeah, as a person that's super fan of the group, I completely agree with that. It was like when I watched it later, yeah, I was like, it was kind of just clunky. It was just. I think something like this would work in New Japan, who has, instead of the clubs or whatever, each faction came out at a time, and then there was one guy at the end. That would actually work because people know the factions and the groups. But the fact that these were 4-5 random guys that, like, no one knew, you know what I mean?
Right.
It did take away from it. Like, of course, I knew who it was, and of course, you knew who the people were. But I'm talking about my friend Stephanie and her brother, who were at their first wrestling shows in 15 years. And everything that they saw was the first time. They came away saying, "I know who Hangman Page is."
Right, and so that's one thing is like. I think a lot of these guys, because they're going to be featured on the show, they've got a lot of time to build them up and introduce them and get them over on the standard television product, But at the same time, as a first introductory, I feel like they could have done much more for these guys when it comes to showcasing them to, even if it was just a small spot. Guy comes in, shows who his character is, gets a couple spots in. We kind of have something to attach to him. And a lot of people didn't really get that here. Hopefully this is something that they learn from and kind of move on from. I like the idea that you mentioned about factions coming in together in a battle royal, but ultimately I kind of feel like it's one of those things where it's like, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And I don't know necessarily that bringing guys out in multiple groups really serves much of a purpose other than speeding up the entire match overall, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you know what? And I agree. But I understand. I'm all about trying stuff new. I just don't, like I said, and I think it's, if they decide this is how they want to do battle royals like forever, I would be okay with it.
Ooh,
but I would be okay with it. But I am more of, I think the traditional battle royal would have, with everybody getting kind of their own introduction or Royal Rumble style, would have worked better in this case.
Yeah, I don't know if they should do this again in the future, honestly. I know that they're trying to make they tried something new, and that's great, and I feel like they're trying to differentiate themselves and have some brand-specific type of match types, but I don't feel like this really accomplished that, in all honesty. One last thing, so at the end of the match, it came down to Hangman Page and MJF, and after Hangman had eliminated somebody, was it Luchasaurus he eliminated?
Yes.
Basically, MJF comes from out of nowhere and dumps him over, and so you think that he's won the match. I think they might have even rung the bell. I can't remember, but Hangman basically skins the cat, holds onto the top rope, doesn't let his feet touch, comes back, and then eliminates. He actually hit that buckshot lariat, which was awesome.
Super over.
And then he eliminated MJF, which is cool, but it's kind of one of those tropes. We've seen this sort of thing in a lot of battle royals. I'm not going to bury it too much because it is something that people do a lot because it works, but I would have hoped that they'd done something a little more imaginative, but ultimately it kind of let us know at the end of the day, like, hey, out of all these guys, the top two you need to keep your eyes out for are Hangman and MJF, which, we'll talk about more later on the show, but as a first offering, it was fine, but it wasn't anything that blew me away, and I feel like it had a lot of kinks to be worked out. But, ultimately we wind up with MJF winning the Battle Royal and getting the first shot at the first future shot at being a contender or, being a competitor for the AEW title.
Yes, definitely. I guess it was funny. My friend's buckshot lariat, I hated it when I first saw it. I was like, why did he flip before doing the clothesline? That move was so over with everyone that I knew that watched it for the first time. It was just really, really over. And I just, it was crazy to me how much they were like, man, that was super athletic.
Yeah, the first time that I ever saw the buckshot lariat was at when was the first time I saw that? It was probably at the World Tag League 2 years ago when people kind of weren't really riding with Hangman like that back then, and he was teaming with Yujiro. And that was right around the time that we started Keeping It Strong Style. And me and Jeremy were like, yo, this Hangman guy, he's not just some jag. Like, he really, really is awesome. And he was doing the buckshot lariat and, the standing moonsaults off the apron. And we're like, this is a guy to really look out for. And now, we're almost 2 years removed from that. And, he's awesome.
Yeah, you definitely, there was no shock about it. There was no surprise. They were not coy about who you were supposed to be watching out for in the future. I mean, it's MJF got some spots, and then Hangman, they seemed bigger and more important than everyone else. All right. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, I agree. The one question I have, do you feel like, given the circumstances, that this was the best that they could do when it comes to establishing a title contender?
No, not at all. Not at all.
What would you have done differently?
I mean, honestly, of course the Pac thing would have been ideal. I probably would have replaced Pac with like Joey Janela or one of the other big guys and had a big match. And then with this, I would have tried to give the title shot to someone unexpected. I mean, honestly, I would have probably, it would have been like Brandon Cutler or someone like me. Someone that absolutely no one, really knew. Because, he wouldn't have won the title, but it would have been able to put a spotlight on him and build a new character. Because Hangman was going to be it, you know what I mean? It was just like, right. I think they missed out an opportunity to build up someone else.
I don't know that. Obviously, in hindsight, we kind of know now that that this is all leading to the Chicago show that's coming up in September. But my thinking at the time, because I didn't know all that, I was kind of thinking that maybe this would lead to a title eliminator, and so maybe I thought that Hangman would wind up facing someone else as a replacement on the show, and then maybe. I kind of thought maybe the winner of this would actually end up facing Hangman as an opportunity to get a shot at the title down the line. But, probably me not being as familiar with all the rules and all the stipulations and that sort of thing, I probably wasn't aware that, the winner of this is definitely getting a title shot. They'd already, proclaimed that ahead of time. So it kind of makes sense why it had to be Hangman at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, we kind of talked about this, that this whole show probably got changed. When they found out Pac wasn't going to be on, they had to scramble. This is not what they expected for the Battle Royal, and so they had to make some adjustments, and I think they did the best they could with what they had, but it could have come off better.
So, with that being said, let's move on. We had one other match on this preview show.
Sammy G and Kip Sabian. Sammy G, he comes out and he has this panda head on, and his music hits, and I don't know how it came off on TV, but in live it didn't seem like the crowd was very,
they seemed dead when he came out.
Yeah, they didn't pop for him. Kip Sabian kind of the same way. I remember after the Battle Royal, a lot of people went to the bathroom. I mean, a lot of people did run out. I actually, as soon as the thing was over and Hangman won, I was like, I have to, get to the bathroom before I have to sit here for 3.5 hours. I actually went right after Sabian and Guevara, but I saw a lot of people bounce at that point. And
I would have flip-flopped these.
Yeah, me. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with that. I think these two are both super athletic, and they can put on a great match, and I think they would have been a great start to the show, but I think they did the Battle Royal for timing purposes.
I agree with that. You're absolutely right when it comes to that. Yeah. But, if I'd been in charge, I think I would have opened with this match and then maybe worked with agents to make sure that the timing was, just right, and then done the Battle Royal as a second match. I feel like that pacing would have been a bit better. But ultimately speaking, there was a few botches and a few awkward spots in this match, but I thought this match was fine. I thought it was, pretty good actually.
Yeah, this was my second time seeing Sammy G. First time seeing Kip Sabian other than highlights. Kip Sabian reminds me a lot of Noam Dar and his kind of energy, and it's like it's very much kind of a UK wrestler with him, very subtle. And I don't think people understood the subtle cockiness of him because it was just kind of like he would do stuff and he would like pose and it would like everybody's like, are we supposed to cheer that? And I don't think it was clear to me. I know Sammy G was cocky and everything, but I don't think it was clear like who was the heel and who was the face to someone that was not very familiar with both of them.
I think on television, and this could just be me, but it really did come across that Sammy Guevara was the heel here. His facials were probably the biggest indicator, more so than any actions. But I did think it was interesting how they've tried to portray him as like a heel who thinks he's a babyface on being the elite. But on the television show, it didn't come across that way at all. It came across as this is a cocky, smirking heel, in the vein of like a early 90s Jericho sort of thing. There was no allusion to the idea that he was Angle, thinking he was a face. So I did think that was a bit interesting that he was kind of like your classical snarky, heel sort of thing. He kind of reminded me a little bit of Zema Iron in his early days of TNA, actually, just a bit, like his facials. But yeah, he came across to me like the definite heel in this match.
Yeah, like I said, it was just in the building. It was just like the people I were around. I was fortunate enough, and in this case, very fortunate. I was around people that didn't know who any of these people are. So I got a real reaction, and they're like flat out asking, "Who's the bad guy in this situation?" And I'm like, that shouldn't be the thing.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I remember one time watching a video where Edge was talking about his acting career, and he was on that show on Sci-Fi with Haven, and he was talking about how the biggest difference between his acting career and his wrestling career is like when you're acting, you have to actually mute almost everything you do in wrestling, because when you're wrestling, you have to exaggerate your facials and your actions so big because thousands of people have to be able to tell what you're doing, versus a camera capturing everything you're doing. It needs to be more understated and nuanced, where, and that might be part of it. You know what I mean? Like, it might be too nuanced and not over exaggerated to where it doesn't translate well with the live crowd.
Yeah. I like I said, I'm getting a running commentary through the show. Like, I have my commentary where, like, I know everything that's going on. And then I have this other person basically telling me, like, I don't know what I'm watching here. I haven't watched every episode of Being the Elite. I haven't watched Road to shows. This is just me showing up, and I have no idea what's going on.
You mean there's people that were at these shows that don't watch Being the Elite?
Yeah.
Scoff.
Yes, and it's like, so they did a great job, of getting people in. But yeah, the whole row behind me. And it was funny because the guys that did it, they do these wrestling themed comic book covers. And they were one of the vendors at the show, and they're amazing. Definitely, they're amazing. I honestly don't remember their names, which I am a horrible person for that. I can't even put their product over. But they do they do these wrestling themed comic book covers. I saw with the Four Horsemen that were almost like it was the Four Horsemen as the Fantastic Four. It was called the Fantastic Four Horsemen, and it was just, they're really cool covers and stuff. And we actually got to talk. They actually stayed at the hotel I was staying at, but can't, if you said, Floyd, I will give you $1 million to tell me their names, I couldn't do it. I'd be like, it is completely blank right now. I was even trying to talk there to try to give myself time to remember. Never came to me. That sucks.
With the crossover appeal of comics and superheroes and wrestling, it is a shame that you can't recall that. my challenge to you would be to go online and figure out who you're talking about so you can put these people over, sir.
Yes, I will definitely go online, figure it out. I will put the link in the show notes so everybody can find it out because they were so nice to me. And like I said, a lot of these things, and a lot of these things I'm going to say with how the audience feels, it's going to be based on these two people that didn't know. And it's like, I can't tell you who they are. And it's like, oh, this sucks. I actually feel pretty bad.
They don't watch Being the Elite, so it doesn't matter.
Yes, I actually feel pretty bad. No, but
they should be tuning into this show so they can get all the recaps and all the live commentary.
And then if they come to my website or come to Twitter and they went and followed me, and I post this, they can be like, hey, that was me, and I can put them super over next week because I will feel really shitty about not remembering their names. So, no, but, I thought the match was fine. Guevara is very athletic, and you got to see a little glimpse of it. I saw him first at the NWA 70 show in Nashville last year, and, he blew me away. And it just seemed like, I don't know if they just didn't have time or this maybe the first time working together or something like that. But it just seemed like, he didn't get like everything he had in. But the one thing that, the one spot I remember that kind of made everybody jump up was when he was draped over the guardrail.
Yes.
And he did a 450, right? Or was it shooting star? Shooting star.
I believe it was a shooting star. I could be wrong, though.
Yeah, he hit the shooting star. But the great thing is, like, a lot of times when people try to do shooting stars and 450s or whatever, but I know it was a shooting star, but in this case, they don't hit them. They don't hit them really good. But, it was chest. He got all of it. And that made it look so much impressive. Like the two guys I'm talking about literally jumped up. They were like, oh, my God.
Ultimately, Kip Sabian ended up going over here, and they called this the first singles match in AEW history, which was pretty cool. But I felt like the guy that got most of the shine and a lot of the big spots that were memorable was Sammy Guevara, who they have earmarked for big things, evidenced by the amount of spotlight they've given him on their different shows, on YouTube and that sort of thing. And I think that there are big things in store for Sammy Guevara with AEW.
Yeah, I love Kip Sabian because, first of all, he's super nice. Got to talk to him for a very, very long time. But big thing is, his finisher is named after Harry Potter, and I am a big Harry Potter nerd. So yeah, I love me some Harry Potter, and so his finisher was called the Deathly Hallows, and I was like, okay, yeah, you got me. And he's yeah.
Speaking of Harry Potter, did you see that they're about to come out with 4 new books next month online?
Yes, and I'm really excited. I'm really excited for it, and because now that I've gotten older, I'm not a big reader. Other than if it's not wrestling stuff like an article or something like that, I don't read a lot.
You read the Observer, sir.
I read the Observer. And it's you laugh, but it's so true. That's the only kind of.
What else do you need to read? I don't understand.
Yeah, I was like, I don't remember the last time someone gave me a book and I actually read it from cover to cover. I don't even remember that. Everything I do is wrestling or sports centric. So. Yeah,
we should write a social suplex book where each of us cover our own topic and it just be super like disconjointed and like random, and then just like publish it.
I'm talking about Southern Tag Team Wrestling, and you're talking about Joshi Wrestling. And they were like, "What does this have to do with anything?"
Yeah, each chapter makes no sense. Like this is basically like our House of Leaves, but for pro wrestling. But yeah, ultimately though, one thing, a couple like final thoughts about the pre-show. I did think the camera cuts were egregiously bad, really, really bad during this match. Where like we were watching it as a group, and we had lots of people here, like I mentioned, and it wasn't just diehard like fan. Like it wasn't just like me and Jeremy who watched New Japan. It was like guys who watch primarily North American, WWE, and they were like, "Yo, these camera cuts are awful." And I was like, dude, I don't know what's going on. Like, if this is how the whole show is, we're gonna be in for a long night.
Yeah.
And so we had a lot of concerns going into the actual pay-per-view, honestly.
Yeah, and like I said, that's a common theme. It's like, from what I've heard, is like everybody was like, "Oh, this is gonna suck," and then the show started. Before the show started, Brandy, Cody, the Bucks, and Kenny all came out. Just basically to introduce and get basically come out and been hype men, which is I think every show needs. I think the WWE could learn from that. You need a hype man to get you ready for the show, and they came out and got the whole crowd pumped up. First sensory event in wrestling history that's been hammered home. I have a friend that recently found out he was on the spectrum, and I actually bought a Culture City shirt like the day of Autism Awareness, and I found out he was on the spectrum, and he was talking to me about that, and I was telling him about AEW and what they're doing, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't go to events." He's like,
Wow.
He didn't know why he didn't go to events, because he didn't know he was on the spectrum. But he didn't know why he didn't go to events. And then, he found out he was on the spectrum, and he's like, yes. He's like, you know what? And he's like, he's never been really into wrestling. We've actually had like philosophical conversations about wrestling as a performance art. No, like I'm not even coding, like hours of conversation.
It is the greatest art known to man.
Yes.
I will dispute that with anybody.
Yes, about it being a performance art, and he's always talked about it, and he's one of those people. By the end, I have him interested, but he's like never actually watched. Once I told him about this and what they were doing, he says, I am definitely going to watch the show. And he has already, which never watched wrestling in his whole life, he already watched the buy-in.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, he thought it was cool. He doesn't know if he can watch it like he said, I don't know if I can watch it like you watch it. And I'm like, I never asked you to. I was like, yeah, I never thought you were going to ever watch it at all. So I'll take what I can get.
I thought it was funny. A couple like small things I noticed when they first came out. Basically Cody said he wanted to introduce the show, and then the Bucks said that they wanted to, and then Kenny was like, "Last time you guys did this at All In, I didn't get to do it, so I want to introduce the show." And so he kind of introduced everybody, and then which was pretty funny. And then Matt Jackson starts announcing, and he's like, "We're so glad to be here in a capacity crowd of 20,000 fans strong."
Yes, and Cody had to remind him that the building only holds 13,000 people. We found out at StarCast that they originally had booked T-Mobile.
Oh.
That they had booked it, and it fell through. And MGM was kind of the second option of it. And so we definitely found out at StarCast they were pretty open about that. And so the idea was to get 20,000, but they got 13. But it doesn't matter.
Double or nothing, right?
Yeah, the goal was double or nothing. Yeah, he's like, yeah, in wrestling you round up, which is, oh my God, such a shot at the WWE.
Clearly a shot at WWE, which is hilarious.
Yes. Oh, when I found out the WWE literally counts everybody in the building, including the people working for them, the vendors, the parking attendants, anyone that has walked through the building, I was like, oh my God, they are so full of shit.
You know what? I'll tell you something right now. I know that in wrestling they round up, and some of those numbers with WWE might be inflated, but I'll tell you this, sir. I will not adhere to any slander about the gates or the attendance numbers of either SummerSlam 92 or WrestleMania 3. I don't care. I don't want to hear it. You try to tell me that those were different numbers. They were not. Those were the attendance numbers.
Yes, that's how many people were watching the match. 90,000 people.
Were there.
Yes, 90,000 people saw Hulk Hogan slam Andre the Giant, even though like 1,000 of those people were locked in rooms where they couldn't see anything going on because they were doing vendor stuff. But hey, you know what? It counts. They heard. Hey, as Sammy Guevara says, I might not have saw your match, but I heard it.
I was like way older, and I found out that like there was claims that those numbers were inflated, and I was like, well, based on what? And they're like, well, Dave said it, and I'm not a Dave hater. I know exactly how reputable he is, and I've been an Observer subscriber for years, and I'm not one of these fans who's like, he's just a fan. Like, no, he's the most credentialed, what would the word be?
Credentialed media member? I don't know.
Yeah, like media member in the history of pro wrestling, and everything that we do is based off of what he like paved the way for. So I know who he is, but I will not adhere to until he can show me strict facts that there was less than those numbers that were actually in the building. Those are the numbers. That's what it was. Yeah. And I also believe 20,000 people were there live. You were there. You were one of the 20,000.
Yes. So you believe that they got 80,000 people into the Tokyo Dome?
Absolutely. Well, I think the number is 60,000, but that might be inflated as well.
They's like, we got 40,000 and we can't fit any more in here, but somehow 60,000 were there.
I don't know if that was for the UWFI New Japan show or if it was for Inoki's retirement. I believe it's for Inoki's retirement, and I think that's why the number's so high. But that's the number, sir, 60K.
Yep, number of people in the Tokyo Dome. Okay, hey, I'm down. Hey, I hope it can fit that many people because I'm trying to go to a show eventually. No, but yes. So we get that, and they announce they get ready for the show. Cody, if wrestling doesn't work out for him, he has a great career as a hype man. He is great at getting the crowd pumped up, and I mean, it was like, I don't know, they could have started off with any match, honestly, and it would have been that fever pitch because he had everybody working, and then they put up the discretion, don't record sign or whatever, don't share this video, and that even got a pop. It was like as soon as that came up.
It felt like a big deal here for the first time in years. We were like paying big money for a pay-per-view with a big party with lots of people, and we were sitting there and we're like, this is a real pay-per-view. Like, this is for real. Yeah. So that was cool. One small criticism, and I'm not gonna be critical all night, but I just want to bring a critical eye to some of this stuff. I see some reluctance that some fans have who are not like the elite shill or the elite like stands, who are concerned about the idea that they came out representing the company to hype everything up, and they're like, are they authority figures? Obviously in non-kayfabe we know they're the co-executive VPs, but how's that going to translate to their on-screen roles? So I feel like that's something to keep your eye on a little bit as a fan of this company, whether they're going to be just performers or are they going to be performers who are also authority figures, like how that's all going to work out. But I wasn't I didn't find this too problematic with it being a historic show, and them obviously we know who they are, so them coming out first. My other problem was I do not think they did a good job, even though the wrestling was fine. I don't think they did a good job with this being a pre-show, with them building up hype for the anticipated matches that were coming up. I would have almost preferred this to be closer to, I don't want to say WWE exactly, but how they do a pretty good job on their pre-show panels, building up hype to the upcoming matches. I would like to see if they're going to do pre-shows the way that like boxing or UFC does when you're watching the pay-per-view, pre-show, that they kind of build some anticipation so that the viewer who hasn't paid for the pay-per-view gets a hook that makes them want to buy the pay-per-view.
Now, I can absolutely agree, because one small criticism I had of the whole show, Jericho and Omega, I felt like wasn't built like the main event. I mean, it was on the shirts and stuff as the main event, but Dustin and Cody had way more of a main event vibe and feel and big fight feel than Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho.
Yeah, I agree. That should be something, even if they're not taking a lot of time, they should be like doing similar things to like what boxing does or UFC, where like they cut to the back and they show them in the back preparing for the match, or doing small interviews, even if it's 20 seconds, just something to kind of like build the anticipation throughout the night for that match. It's something that they did at Starrcade very beautifully with Ric Flair and Harley Race, and I feel like they could have benefited from that kind of presentation.
Yeah, Omega, if you didn't know who Kenny Omega was coming in, which some people did not, you really didn't know why he was a big deal by the end of the match. He was the guy that no one knew versus Chris Jericho. Everything Chris Jericho said was true. And it was just like, I don't think they did a good enough job of saying the importance of Kenny Omega, the best bout machine. They did not. It was like, and even when Jericho won, it was kind of like, oh, I thought Jericho was going to win. You know, that kind of thing. The other person was like, why wouldn't Jericho win? He's the guy that everyone.
I agree.
Yeah, so we'll go further into that, but I that was a concern I had even before the show, and I was hoping we would get more during the Starcast week, up to the day before to make that match seem bigger. I mean, because by the end of the show, no one thought that what happened at the end of the show made them like, oh, that was the main event, but before then they were like, why was this the main event?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, let's start with the first match. It's their music and their entrance is 100% the best way to start any show. They started all in, and now they started Double or Nothing. It was SCU coming out. Oh my God. So over. So over.
Bro, they're so over. It's incredible.
Yes, and it's funny because Christopher Daniels has been amazing forever. Frankie Kazarian has been amazing forever. I really just discovered Scorpio Sky in the last 2 years when he joined SCU, so I can't say he's been amazing forever. You may be able to speak to that. But these people have been like the best workers in their company forever, and they've never been this hot. And it's like, seriously, they would be walking through the hotel in the casino, like they'd be walking up, SCU, and everybody would be chanting it. It's like, they are so over.
They were so over during All In weekend, but it's just grown exponentially. And it's funny because I've kind of found their shtick to be a little bit tiresome when it comes to being the elite. Not that it's bad by any means, but it hasn't gone in any new direction or anything like that, but it doesn't matter. They are so over. When we're sitting here and I was with all my buddies, I just said, can you imagine what these guys are going to be like on national television week after week when they're able to do this? Because they came out and they did their pre-match spiel, and I was like, they're going to be like the Road Dogg Jesse James and the Badass Billy Gunn.
Do you know that was the next thing out of my mouth? Go ahead and
they're going to be so freaking over. They're going to be one of the hottest acts. Those guys are about to, their merch sales are about to go out of this world because so many people don't know who they are, but they know that there's a buzz about them, and they're about to be a big thing.
Yes, and it's crazy. I was just about to say they're basically the New Age Outlaws of AEW, but they are amazing workers, amazing workers, and it's just like. But they come out and and they do the thing, and it's just like, this is the worst town. And I love how Christopher Daniels, this might be the best worst town. This might be our the favorite worst town. But it's like,
well, they had a skit it's probably about 6 months ago where they were in Vegas and they were loving Vegas. SCU was. But then they all got blackout drunk and had, basically a spoof on
Hangover.
The Hangover, and they woke up and they were naked in a hotel room. And they're like, "This is for sure the worst town we've ever been in."
Yeah, but it's funny. They say the town's the worst, and Frankie does his part, Scorpio does his part. It's great. But, and they're equally over.
But if we want to find a WCW equivalent, because I am starting to feel like AEW is the spiritual successor to WCW, this is very reminiscent to the Outsiders and Scott Hall's whole spiel before matches.
Yes. How many people are here to see the WCW?
One more for the good guys.
Yes, it's very much like that. It's very much like that. I remember K-Dog and the Wolfpack. We bowed about it and routed. I remember that. That was so horrible.
Yo,
But yeah,
like I'm half Hispanic, but like I don't speak any Spanish, and I was like, "Olale!"
Arriba la raza, yeah. I did that whole spiel in my high school years, and it was just like now you got SCU. They're the spiritual successors to those things, and it's just like it's so over, and they're so amazing. Like when they're dealing with their fans. And I guess it comes from years of being the independents and trying to get people to sell T-shirts and all that stuff. But they are the best when it comes to hanging out with their fans. So that's great. Then we got the Strong Hearts, which is Shima, L. Linderman, and T-Hawk. Is it L. Linderman like a Hispanic name?
Yeah, it is. It's L-E-L.
Yeah.
I did think it was interesting that they didn't have it listed as L. They just had it listed as Lindemann.
Yeah, that was weird. And I put L in front of it when I was doing my notes, and I was gonna ask you whoever I was talking to about that. But they came out, and of course, not a lot of people knew who they were, but the people who did cheered them. And then they started working, and that's when I want to get to. That's what I want to talk about, because freaking Shima, that was the first time I'd ever seen him work. Oh my God, he's good. Like, blew me away. Good. Like, he is so smooth.
Yeah, I was sitting here with friend of Keepin It Strong Style, buddy of ours who's been on the show. His name's Jamie, and he's a good friend of mine, and we go way back when it comes to like fandom of Puroresu. And it's interesting. There's a very famous match from 2006 in Ring of Honor where it was the Dragon Gate guys against the Do Fixers. I believe that was their names. It was a 6-man tag, and it was kind of like the first exposure of the Dragon Gate system to the North American audience. And like Dave gave it 5 stars at the time, and Dave was just freaking out. And the reality is like that 6-man tag is very famous, but it's not even by Dragon Gate standards really a 5-star match. But it's something that really kickstarted an entirely new style of professional wrestling in North America that has resonated to this day, to where like if you watch it now, it's still a great match, but you would think this is kind of mid, basically, But now to see those same guys, and we're 13 years removed from that match on this major stage, and finally Shima and finally T-Hawk are getting their kind of like just due. It's a fitting, it's so fitting to see them and Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian, all these guys who are like, whether people realize it or not, they're veterans of the sport who have really put in their time. They're older veterans, but who can still really, really go. And now they're on this national stage, and they're getting a new platform here in the States to kind of do what they're doing. It was a fitting first match for this company on the main stage.
Yeah, that thing where they have them and they take their legs and they spin them up and, flip them over and kind of kick them. And I was just like, it's not used that much in North American wrestling that I see. And I was just like, how smooth everything was. And like They definitely gave me a LIJ feel in some of the combinations that they put together, because that's pretty much all I have to go against. And I was like, I was like, that was the only comparison I have. And it was just so, I was just like in awe. I'm like, I am a talker, but like for about 5 minutes during this match, it was just silence and me trying to make sure I could catch everything, because they were moving so quick. And it was just like, this is okay. Why am I not watching this all the time? They were really good.
Well, sir, you can, subscribe to the Dragon Gate Network. I don't know what their official streaming service is, but they've got more where that came from.
I definitely would. I already watch 20 hours of wrestling a week, so I am good. I am not adding anything to that list. I'm actually eliminating stuff. I'm like,
that's good.
Yeah, it's like I don't watch 205 Live anymore. I don't watch NXT UK. I'm a subscriber to the network. I'm already giving them my money. It doesn't matter if I actually press play or not. But so I already watched that much TV, especially when like something like Best of the Super Juniors or G1s going on, I'm watching a shit ton of wrestling. And so,
I don't have any specific notes on this match. I will say this. There's no spots that really stick out to me necessarily. It kind of felt in a way like, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, obviously everybody got in a good bit of offense, and everyone was really impressive here, especially Scorpio Sky. But it felt sort of like SCU came out here to kind of do their shtick, and then after they did their shtick, as far as in-ring action was concerned, it was more about presenting Shima, T-Hawk, and El Lindaman as new commodities to this North American audience, because they got, I would say, about 60 to 70% of the offense in this match.
Yeah, Linderman. Oh, my God. His strength. Oh,
Judo, man.
Yeah, he's so little, but he's just like, he's doing the Germans, deadlift Germans. I'm like, dude, this dude is freaking awesome.
How bad do you want to see him and Tyler Bate?
Oh man, take my money, take it all right now. T-Hawk spitting into some kind of submission. I think it was on Christopher Daniels, like that leg submission. I was like, I was like, you know, when you were young and you would see something for the first time and then you would try to do it on your friends. I was like, how did he do that? I was pressing play and backing up. I'm like, how did he get him into this leg hold?
The funny thing is that this is a very slowed down version of what you typically see in the Dragon Gate system. So it was very, very interesting in that way. But yeah, these guys were so smooth. I thought this was a perfect fitting like introductory match to start off the show with two totally contrasting but complementary styles. And I really dug this match. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yes, I absolutely enjoyed it a ton. He got me excited. You know, the term that they use a lot when talking about what they were going to present as far as what AEW was is fresh. And this was very fresh. It was something, even someone that watches as much wrestling as I do, that was something I hadn't seen. So, like, for the people like that were behind me, and they were like, are these guys like, okay, and they were like, are these guys like the best in the world or whatever? And I'm like, man, I'm seeing them for the first time too. And we were all just very impressed with this match. I think this match, as far as getting everybody over, was,
yeah.
I think that the goal was to get everyone over. I think it definitely did that goal.
The great thing about this card, no match really got shafted when it came to time. They got a little less than 14 minutes. They got to showcase all of their stuff. I'm very excited to see where we go with the Strong Hearts, and I'm very excited actually to see the rest of the OWE roster that gets introduced, because what those guys are doing, if you've seen the GIFs, it's different from these traditional Dragon Gate system guys. And so we haven't even seen what OWE really has to offer so far. Like, I wouldn't say this was indicative of that whatsoever. There was some controversy about Jim Ross calling the Strong Hearts Chinese talent, but I think it was more of a confusion. Just he's not as familiar with them, and because they're.
I was going to say Excalibur did a good job of every time he's saying that, coming back and saying, you know, these are Japanese guys that work in China.
Yeah. So I don't hold that too much against Jim Ross, because I don't imagine that he's – I mean, I watched him in New Japan, so I know he doesn't know that. If he's not familiar with the most, you know, the most, like, exposed product out there, then he probably is not even at all familiar with, you know, Dragon Gate or the Dragon Gate system or OWE. So that makes total sense. So I don't hold it against him too much. But aside from that, yeah, this was great. Ultimately, SCU ended up picking up the win here, though.
Yes, they ended up picking up the win with the best Meltzer ever. Lindemann took the fall. It was just a really well done match. And it's funny.
Really good.
Yeah, it's funny because, you know, of course, they don't do the whole move protection thing. I was like, their finisher, a couple other finishers look remarkably similar going through this, and they were all tag teams. So it's kind of funny. I just thought about that. I was like, I guess finisher protection can work because it seems like
similar to whose protection or similar to whose finish.
Their finisher is similar to the Best Friends, and then of course and the Young Bucks.
Yeah,
they all basically do the same type of thing. So it's just interesting. I was thinking about that, with a whole move protection thing, and they're all, they all kind of finish you the same way. But
they hit the best Meltzer ever, right?
Yeah, which is
I think that the deal there is that when they introduced the best Meltzer ever, and I could be wrong here, but if I remember correctly, they were trying to one up the Young Bucks, and that's kind of where the genesis of that movie even came from, because they were doing the Meltzer driver, and then they're like, oh, well, we're going to do the best Meltzer ever.
Yeah, and I definitely understand. It's just like if I'm someone new, their moves look really, really similar.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just like, it's like, okay, the only way to beat someone is to spike pile drive them.
There was quite a few instances where people had similar types of moves on this show, which is something you don't see in, say, like WWE. It's kind of like this move is this guy's, and this move is this guy's, and over here they're like, no, be who you are, use your move set, and if someone else uses the same move, it's fine.
Yeah, they can just do it better or not as good as you, which is, like I said, it was awesome. Do you have a star rating for this match?
I didn't do star ratings, but I am looking at the cage match ratings. Dave Meltzer gave this 4 stars. The cage match inmates gave it 7.67, which would average out to about a little less than 3 3/4, I guess. So that's just a smidge beneath what Dave gave it. But I would probably agree it was right in there. It's just below 4 stars. It was a great opener.
Yeah, definitely great opener. I had it at 3.75, which is good. So yeah, that was definitely. I mean, crowd was super hyped after that match, waiting for the next match. And the next match, we get the announced triple threat match. We get Kylie Rae, who came out first, and he's doing her Kylie Rae thing. Nyla Rose. I love the American Kaiju gimmick. That name, I just think that's like one of the best nicknames ever. And then Britt Baker came out, DMD. Kylie got a big pop, and I thought Nyla's was good. I did not think Britt's was all that great from in the building.
At this point, I didn't really notice too much about the pops or anything like that, but I did think it was interesting what Cody had said during StarCast, where he kind of threw some shade at WWE, where he mentioned how he alluded to the idea that they kind of ruined Bayley on the main roster. And I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically said that with Kylie Rae, they're going to show him how it's really done.
Yeah, and Kylie Rae, basically, she's legit nice instead of someone playing nice on the main roster or whatever. It was like, what did Bayley do to you? Shot. I was like, it was crazy.
Yeah, people did take that the kind of in a bad way. I don't know. I wouldn't say the wrong way, because I don't want to criticize, because maybe he was misspeaking. I don't know. I did see him kind of take it back a bit. And I'm not huge on Twitter, so you guys probably know better than I do. But he did kind of say like, oh, no, I wasn't misspeaking against Bayley. I was saying how she was handled on the main roster, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And that's funny, because he doesn't usually go, like Cody doesn't, go like at people directly. It was more of it felt like sitting in the crowd at the press conference. It felt like a direct shot at her. But I guess he didn't mean it.
People misspeak, and sometimes, as we've seen this past week with Cody, he took quite a few shots at WWE.
Which was awesome. It was awesome. It was, honestly, he set the tone that every fan wanted to be set, so that's good. And that way,
every non-WWE fan.
Exactly. Yeah, he set a tone, and then we get Brandy come out, and she comes out in full gear. I'm like, so is Brandy adding herself to the match? That is my actual thought when she comes out with no announcer.
Speaking of which, before we move on, since you mentioned Full Gear, what did you think about the fact that we never really got an actual payoff to the Full Gear challenge at all?
We got a payoff on BTE.
Was it on BTE?
Yeah, on BTE, Cody told him, I was basically making sure you were ready. You were feel good ready all along.
Okay, gotcha. Never mind.
Yes.
Disregard.
Yeah, so he did that on BTE. It wasn't the result we wanted. It was like, okay, all this shit has happened. We have to give someone some kind of payoff for this. And then, they did what they could. But yeah, Brandy comes out, whose music is amazing. Love her music. She comes out and she's in full gear, and it looks like she's like about to add herself to the match. She says, I never said that you didn't have a chance to win this match. I didn't lie to you. But I think this triple threat match is going to be great. But I want it to be awesome. And then more music hits, and
as soon as she said that, I literally jumped up out of my seat, and I was like, "It's Awesome Kong! It's Awesome Kong!" And like everyone else is still sitting, and I was just like running around the apartment because I knew immediately as soon as she said "awesome," I was like, "Oh my god!"
And let me tell you, the best kept secret ever. I am there at StarCast in every line. Everybody's talking about what they think is going to happen in the show. Not one person said this, and if they say they did, they're fucking liar. They did not say this. I was shocked. I popped. I jumped up. I screamed because I was a big Awesome Kong fan in Impact, and oh my god, it was like, how did they keep this a secret? I mean, there's like an extra 20,000 wrestling fans in town, and nobody knew she was there.
Bro, it was so awesome to see her come out. Everyone that I was with was like, when was the last time she wrestled? I was like, well, it went like this. She basically was in WWE, she said she was leaving to have a child. Then the next thing I know, she's the welfare queen on Glow, and then she's here. That's like the whole timeline in my mind. I'm sure that she's actually, like, Kia Stevens has had other matches.
She worked in Impact for a few years.
I know she's done other stuff, but in my mind, none of that exists.
Yes.
It was WWE, welfare queen, now she's here, and she's about to wreck shit.
Yeah, she did some great matches in Impact after she left WWE with Gail Kim, and they were awesome. But yeah, no pun intended. But yeah, like, she comes in, and she's just, I mean, walking badass. When Jim Ross always points to the fact that when he was signing people, she came and he saw her, she thought she was a great talent, and told her, WWE's looking for a type of person, and you're not it. He's like, I wanted to sign her. She was a great wrestler, but she wasn't what Vince was looking for. And she finally made it to the WWE, and they didn't do a lot with her. But now she's here, and she's like, the moment she walks to the ring, you like, a badass is coming through, and it's like, something's about to happen, and she does that back fist and knocks the shit out of people. I mean, yeah, y'all don't know, I'll mark out for Awesome Kong all day. I don't care. I think she's just so good. And the match, what did you think of how the match, like, overall?
I enjoyed it quite a bit. I have heard some criticisms. I do think it was a bit disconjointed. I don't know whether to believe this because everybody in wrestling's, they're all carnies. But according to the reports I've read and the interviews I've seen with these women, Britt Baker and Kylie Ray and Nyla Rose all claim they didn't know Awesome Kong would be in the match. I find that hard to actually believe. But it did kind of seem, in a way, like the match was sort of like a Britt Baker, Kylie Ray match where they would interject the two monsters from time to time. And by monsters, I just mean monster heels. I don't want to sound like I'm disparaging women, but it did kind of seem like they were kind of just sprinkled in from time to time, and Awesome Kong and Nyla Rose would end up, kind of on the outside for long periods of time. And it is difficult to have a four-way, especially, it just is difficult. It's not a match that's given itself well to being a great match. But overall, I thought that the women had they all looked great. They had great, chemistry. It was probably on the main card the lowest match of the night. But with that being said, I actually ended up enjoying it more than the 4-way at All In. And I don't know if too many people that were here with me watching it agreed with that, but I thought it was very, very good.
I thought the 4-way at All In was one of the best matches of the night, so I can't say I enjoyed it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I can't say I enjoyed it like that, but Nyla Rose and Awesome Kong doing the stare down, and that was
cool.
That was pretty cool. And like I said, that first backhand, she caught her square, and I was like, oh my god, that back fist, the spear into the steps, which ultimately wiped them out for them to finish. I enjoyed that. Kylie Ray. She does that kind of flip over thing and then pops up and then kicks the person in the head. I dig that spot that she does, and she did a kind of clunky German, but I mean she's strong, which was awesome. Britt Baker, I mean she won. I don't feel like she came out as the star of the match though.
I don't know if I agree with that. Well, I guess this doesn't mean she was the star of the match, but she was in incredible shape.
Yeah.
But I don't know if anyone really. I guess Kylie kind of came off like the star of the match.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think her gimmick is really given well to being like a fan favorite. However, I don't know that any of these women were especially well known by most of the crowd in general, and with them putting Britt Baker over, especially given the fact that they did a great job of building hype for this match on their various shows and building a lot of anticipation for it. I think they did a good job kind of telling you, like, Britt Baker is the premier woman in this division right now, given her placement during the press conferences when they announced this company and the different profiles they've done on her. She might not have been the quote-unquote star performer of the match, but I think that they're kind of telling you, even if a lot of shine was given to Kylie, like the woman to watch out for is Britt Baker. And you got to imagine she's going to factor into the title picture in a major way when they do introduce a women's belt in the future.
Absolutely, though. And then they did her brain buster to the knee, a finisher used by her real life boyfriend, Adam Cole. And I just thought that was super cool. Because, a lot of people pop for that move, that fan service type thing there. And it's just like, okay, she's kind of going to be the person going forward. Like the fact that she got the win is what's going to lead her as one of the people going forward. But I was like, I think if Kylie Ray being the new person, if the point was to get her over, that worked. Nyla Rose looked to me better on TV than she did live. Live, I thought she was like a step slower than everybody else, but it came off better on TV.
Well, I will say that Awesome Kong being out of the ring kind of showed on the television that she was a bit blown up during this match, and they did a good job disguising that by kind of keeping her on the outside. It's not necessarily a criticism, given the fact that she probably hasn't been as active, and I'm sure, like, moving forward, I've seen Awesome Kong just be, like her name suggests, awesome in the ring. And all she has to do is be Awesome Kong. She doesn't have to be a work rate, master or anything like that. But of all the women, you could tell she had the least amount of, like, recent experience in the ring. Like, you can kind of tell that there's some rust there, but ultimately I thought everyone played their role really well. You probably have a point there with Nyla Rose being a half step off, that sort of thing, but that's kind of what I was speaking to. It kind of seemed like it was a Kylie and Britt match that just kind of had these two monster heels kind of interjecting from time to time.
I dug her Nyla's spine buster. I thought was pretty dope.
Ooh, yeah. Who did she hit that on?
Was that Kylie Ray? I believe.
I think it was Kylie. She killed her.
Yeah, I thought her spine buster looked really, really good. And as an Arn Anderson fan, I am very critical of good and bad spine busters. So no, but that match was good.
Dude, you're such an enigma. You're like my favorite wrestler in WWE is Cody. I love Arn Anderson.
Dude, you know what? And with me, wrestling is more about the feelings that I had. And Arn Anderson, when I was growing up, it was just like he was the guy. It was like
Dude,
they were the horsemen.
I'm gonna tell you right now, like growing up, I did not like Arn Anderson whatsoever. I thought he was old. He had a bald spot. I did not get Arn Anderson. It wasn't until years later that I could really appreciate his mastery and how incredible he was. I was like, he doesn't wear face paint. He doesn't have tassels. Why would I like Arn Anderson?
Yeah, that was the whole thing about him, is that he was the scary guy in the Horsemen. He wasn't much bigger than everybody else. He wasn't much intimidating.
He's the enforcer.
But he was the enforcer. He was the one jumping the guy before the match, and he was always interfering for Flair. And I just like,
You know what I think the thing is we have a few years apart in our ages, and I think like because I was a little kid watching Arn Anderson,
yes.
And I was like, he's an old man. I don't get it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I hated Arn Anderson. I was like, he's the most boring wrestler ever. Now, as like a wrestling aficionado, I'm like, Arn Anderson is the most underrated talent of the entire 80s.
Yes.
Arn Anderson's one of the greatest wrestlers that ever lived.
Yes. It's funny because I always tell the joke that this black kid from Oklahoma, when I would tell my dad all I wanted to be when I grow up was Arn Anderson. What do you want to be when you grow up? Arn Anderson. I wanted to be a balding white guy.
Two funny off-subject Arn Anderson's things, and we'll move on. One, have you ever seen the Tosh skits where he's always calling out Arn Anderson?
Yes.
So I freaking love that. Like, anytime he's doing anything wrestling related, he'll start to call out Arn, and he's like, Arn, if you're watching, you and me. The other thing, too, is I remember watching Nitro in 1995, and I was a diehard Hulk Hogan fan. And Hulk Hogan got hit in the eye with one of either Woman or Elizabeth or Deborah's high heel spikes. I don't remember which one because they had too many women in the Four Horsemen back then. But he got hit in the eye with the spike and then got pinned live on Nitro by Arn Anderson. I remember going to bed crying and praying to God that he would help Hulk Hogan to recover from this injury and to overcome Arn Anderson and the Four Horsemen to reclaim his place as the top star of WCW.
Yeah, man, I was so happy when Arn got that win. Oh, dude, I was over the moon. So we went to bed exactly the opposite way. I was like, oh my God. I was over the moon when he got that win. Yeah, Arn, man. Yeah, like everybody should work like Arn. Wrestling would probably be super boring if everyone worked the exact same way. But yeah, I just think that's the only way to work. Work the left arm, even though your finisher has nothing to do with the left arm. I even as a kid, that confused me. Why would you work the left arm and your finisher be a spine buster?
Listen, I'm telling you, if you've never seen it, and I'm sure a lot of people listening have never seen it, you have to go out of your way. You need to watch the Rockers versus the Brainbusters from January 1989 in Madison Square Garden. They finished the match. You'll know it's the right match because they finished the match the same way as SummerSlam 89 with Ultimate Warrior versus Rick Rude with someone getting their leg pulled and held down for the pinfall. But I'm telling you, the best tag team wrestling match of the 80s in WWF is the Rockers versus the Brainbusters. It is a 5-star classic, and it's one of Arn Anderson's best matches of his entire career. No one ever talks about it.
Arn Anderson, every match is the best match of his career. No, I'm just kidding.
That's not true.
No, but I used to love the Arn and Tully versus the Rock and Roll Express. That was my shit. And I would always go for Arn and Tully, not the Rock and Roll Express, of course. But on to the next match, which, after speaking of tag team wrestling, we got the Best Friends versus Angelico and Jack Evans. Best Friends, their opening video has gotten a lot of talk online. Did you remember? Did they focus on that as far as on TV?
So that was one criticism that I did have. They did a great job as the main show progressed in cutting down the cuts, the camera angle cuts. They did far fewer of them throughout the show, which was great. They did miss a few things, but there were some miscues where like people would be coming out and they would there was 2 tunnels. They'd go to the wrong tunnel. They'd miss people's entrances. Sometimes they would play the wrong music or have the wrong name queued up. Just small production issues. Nothing that ruined the show, but something that was noticeable if you're used to that pristine kind of like delivery that WWE or other major promotions have. But with that being said, I don't recall the Best Friends like intro video, but I have heard some people talk about it, and I'm not sure what the controversy even really was.
Yeah, it was just kind of trippy. It was a bunch of aliens, dogs. Them 2 guys look like they're holding hands or whatever.
I saw them holding hands, so that's all I saw.
Yeah, I just I didn't think it was controversy. People either loved it or hated it, kind of thing. It was like no in between.
I've seen a lot of people that like the new intro music they have.
Yeah, definitely. Angelico and Jack Evans. Big problem I had was them both wearing the same color.
I agree. I said the exact same thing. In fact, I was always confused in Lucha Underground because I was like, why aren't these guys on a team? Because they wear the same colors, but they weren't, you know? But I don't have too much problem with it. It was just the monotone nature of it because it was so much of the same color, you know?
Yeah, and it's just like when you got people in the crowd that don't know who everyone is.
Yeah.
And they're all white guys. They're all flying
Well, they
around.
wore similar colors to the Best Friends, too.
Yeah. So it was just like, that's what I'm saying. They were like, at times you could see people getting confused on who was who. Alex Marvez, I heard a lot of stuff about his commentating. I have to say his highlight of the night was Trent's introduction. He just threw out some nicknames. He was like, I think something from Sussex, and he just puts over Trent Beretta. Even Jim Ross had to say, did you just come up with that off the top of your head? And it was like, it was just that moment. I even said it when it was playing through before Jim Ross said something. I was like, that was pretty impressive. And I could see, like, through the night, I don't know how your commentary was, but after I went back and watched it, I can see what's there. I can see the baseline. He just wasn't comfortable yet.
I got to tell you, I've heard nothing but criticism for Alex Marvez. I'm not going to stand up for him, but I can't really say one way or the other. Again, I was in a giant pay-per-view party, and as such, lots of personalities, lots of talking, lots of drinking, lots of eating. I didn't hear much of the commentary. What I did hear most of the night, which was a lot of Excalibur and Jim Ross, I thought they did a great job. And I was surprised at how great I thought Jim actually did. But I've heard so much criticism about Alex Marvez, and I didn't hear anything egregious. But I was in a giant party, so I couldn't tell you with any assurity how good or bad he did. But I've heard a lot of people say he did bad, so I'm assuming that if a lot of people are saying it's probably true.
Yeah, he was very quiet through the night. He got overpowered. He kind of misspoke. You could tell it was like his first time doing this in the wrestling.
It's a hard job.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to make sure I said one positive thing, and like I could see the base of what will be good eventually there. It just wasn't. He wasn't good. I mean, honestly,
I didn't hear him, so I didn't leave that show thinking like that show was great, but Alex Marvez sucked. Like I didn't have any ill feelings, but
When I watched it back, I listened for him because I had heard how bad he was, and exactly what everybody was saying was just like sometimes he just wasn't there. And I just think that's going to come with years and timing. Excalibur is used to being the person that talks the most, and you could tell that. He was great. He was amazing. And I mean, I felt at times he could have just done it by himself.
In all fairness, Excalibur didn't really cut through too much to me on the live broadcast either. I'm sure if I sat down and watched it, I'd have nothing but exemplary things to say about him. But I didn't really hear him much. I didn't really hear Alex much. I just heard Jim Ross because he's got that distinct style, that distinct voice. And the whole night I was like, wow, Jim is doing so good tonight. And everyone kind of agreed with me. But, I was in a big party, so I couldn't say.
Jim Ross was amazing. He was old Jim Ross. He was back to being Jim Ross. You could tell he was excited about it. He knew everything going on. I mean, I was one of the people that buried him on his New Japan coverage also.
Absolutely. I'm like deservedly so.
And I was like, I was basically a New Japan fan, and I knew who the people were. I was like, how do you not know who the people are? But don't get me wrong. But he was very much back to being Jim Ross. He seemed like he found his smile again.
Now, couple thoughts about this match. One, I did not like Angelico's new haircut. I did not like Angelico's new outfit. I liked his old look from Lucha Underground, and I'm very familiar with him from Lucha Underground. I haven't seen him in a few years, obviously, because that show's not really airing anymore. But I thought he looked good. I love, obviously, being a Ring of Honor head and also, covering New Japan. I'm very acquainted with the Best Friends, and I love, Chucky T and Trent Beretta. I thought they looked great here. But by far, the star of this match was Jack Evans. And the funny thing is, I followed Jack Evans for years, and I was here with what I would consider diehard fans, some of them. And I was like, Jack Evans and Angelico are freaking awesome. And they're like, we'll have to see it to believe it. And I was like, listen, wait till you see Jack Evans, because he's going to freaking steal the show. And after like a few moves, like, okay, Jack Evans is for real, for real.
Last week, the preview of the show I put over, I was like, Jack Evans is on that Will Ospreay, Ricochet level athleticism. And Amy was like, oh, I got to see this. I'm like, yeah, you got to see it, because he was doing a lot of this stuff kind of before them, because he's a little older than them, right? He's been around a long time. And I was like, he
started young, though.
Yeah. I'm like, he's a freak of nature when it comes to athleticism. And, seriously, people over in the group, mouths wide open, they're like, okay. A lot of people walked out thinking he was the star of the night. He was the guy that no one knew. He has a normal name. But at the end of the night, people were going home, looking up Jack Evans on YouTube.
You want to hear something crazy? How old do you think Jack Evans is?
He's been around so long. You said I'd say 38.
Oh my God, you're 1 year off. He's 37 years old. I would have never guessed that Jack Evans was 37.
He has an older face.
I know he does, but he kind of always has, even as a young guy. It's weird. He's got one of those faces that looks super old and super young at the same time, as weird as that sounds.
Yeah. And I was just like, you kind of gave me the hint when you said he started young, so I was like, well, maybe he started at 16, and then I said, but I know he's been around at least 20 years. That's all I knew, because I remember when I was going to college, which this is my 20-year high school anniversary or whatever. I remember hearing about this guy named Jack Evans. It was very, very lightly, that kind of thing. So he's been around forever.
Everyone else in this match is between 32 and 33. Jack Evans, 37. I might be in the minority here. I liked this match better than the opener. I kept consistently feeling throughout the night like each match was building upon each match and getting better and better throughout the night, which I thought was awesome. But this match blew me away. I've heard some people say it was disconjointed. It didn't kind of fit. It was sort of like a fun, match. But I was like, dude, this match freaking ruled. I thought everybody was on point. This was it reminded me of X Division style wrestling that you saw in TNA in 2002, but in 2019. And I just thought it was so great.
Yeah. I had this one spot where Evans, he does the springboard like a double stomp, then he goes directly into a front flip, then he kicks Chucky T in the face. And I was just like, wow. I was just like, you're not supposed to be able to do that, dude.
He did a moonsault off of
Angelico
to the outside.
Yes. I'm like, how do you get footing on that? Backs are sweaty and all those type of thing, and he does a backflip off someone's back to the outside of the ring. He was he was in rare form. I don't know if this was just like a regular night for him, but he blew some people.
Jack can do this sort of stuff any night of the week, but it also felt at the same time like this was a star-making performance where you have a guy who's been at the top of his game for so many years, but nobody's been able to see him because he's never been signed anywhere. And then suddenly he gets this opportunity, and that's one of the great things about AEW. It's creating opportunity in the industry, in their promotion, and outside of it for so many people. And Jack grabbed the brass ring, if you will, and he made himself a star that night. And this match really delivered. I was like, wow.
He solidified his spot. I will definitely say that.
I was like, yo, I know that like the Bucks and the Lucha Brothers is going to be great, but they've got a lot to live up to because this match is incredible. I had it at 4 stars.
Yeah, definitely. It was probably my 3rd favorite match of the night. So definitely. I just thought they blew me away. I was a big fan of Angelico. I saw him work a Super Strong Style 16, and it was great for progress, and I thought he was really good. And I heard some people like he doesn't do anything for him. I'm like, man, that dude's amazing to me. I really like him.
Angelico looked really good in this match. I didn't like his gear, but he had a great performance. It was the most inspired I think I've seen him ever. I think that it's interesting to see him live versus seeing him in the Lucha Underground kind of like edited sort of, delivery versus like seeing him live is a different experience.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, he blew me away, and it was great. He was everything I thought. Jim Ross did a good job of putting over how on tags they have a 10 count now. So it's going to allow more freedom, and it's at the referee's
What do you mean?
discretion.
Because I didn't catch that.
Oh, yeah. On tags, when you're doing double teams, in traditional professional wrestling, you have 5 seconds. In AEW, it's a 10 count. The referee starts at 10.
That's awesome.
It starts at 10 count, and he did a very good job of doing its referee's discretion on getting the people outside of the ring and how much they enforce that 10 count. Again, it was very much a contrast for me because I saw the New Japan stuff where he was basically shitting on the rules of New Japan the whole show. And then, and now he was just like, it seems like, he's starting to, progress with what wrestling is now.
Nice.
Yeah, so definitely I thought that was cool. The best friends get the win. Which I don't
hit a strong 0 on, I believe, was it Jack Evans they hit it on?
Yeah, with the spike from Chuck E. T.
Yep, that's the strong 0.
Oh, the whole move is called the strong 0?
Yep.
I did not know that. See, you're teaching me stuff. That's why you're here, sir. That's why you're here. No, they get the pin, and then the lights go out, and legit everyone thought something fucked up, and that the electricity just went out. Not like no one thought it was wrestling stuff. Everyone's like, "Oh fuck, this is gonna look horrible on pay-per-view." So everyone thought like the lights went out, and then it was like freakishly kind of felt like a long time. I don't know how it came off on TV, and then 2 guys came out, and then the lights went out again, and a bunch of minions started attacking everyone. I had no idea who this was. You don't know the Super Smash Brothers? I did not know the Super Smash. Where do they wrestle?
Okay, so the Super Smash Brothers are a pretty I don't want to say that they're well known, but they're a semi well known independent tag team from Chikara.
Okay.
They've been on PWG. They wrestled in Ring of Honor for for a while. But it's kind of funny. They kind of fell off of the mainstream circuit for a few years, and then just in the past 1 or 2 years, they kind of have made their return. They've been featured on Ring of Honor on some of those War of the Worlds tours the last couple years.
Did they wrestle the Bucks like a year ago or 2 years ago?
They did, and that match is awesome.
Yes, okay.
It's Player Uno and Player Dos, and then they changed their names, and it's Evil Uno and Stu Grayson, the Super Smash Brothers, who, people who watch Chikara and PWG, they know them, but I think the general independent fan, even people who know, the Elite for the most part, probably are not as familiar with, the Super Smash Brothers.
As I sit here pointing at myself, because I'm like, of course, I've been talking about teaching everybody about people that are coming out, and they all look at me and they're like, "Who are these guys?" I'm like, "I have no fucking clue who these guys are." I was like, but it was kind of cool. All the 10 people came out and started attacking them, and they busted out some really good, really cool moves. The big guy with some kind of, I wouldn't call it a suplex, but it was like a backbreaker or something.
That's Evil Uno.
Yeah, Evil Uno. That was so really cool. And then they did it felt like a Gordy bomb with a cutter over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was freaking amazing. And then the people made a chair, and he sat on them. And I just thought that was visually the dopest thing like I saw all night.
Now, when you say the people, what you're referring to, just for the listeners, the lights cut out twice. The first time it cut out, it came back on. It was the Super Smash Brothers. Then it cut out again, and when it came back on, there was a whole slew of nameless masked minions.
Yeah.
Who came in and decimated the tag teams that were remaining. And then we got the display that you mentioned where the Super Smash Brothers took apart different people and hit some of their signature moves. Initially, the crowd started chanting, "Who are you?"
Yes.
Because they didn't know who these guys were, which I was kind of like a little bummed by that because I was like, this is such a positive crowd and they've been so positive the whole night. And then they start this kind of negative chant. But by the time that these guys hit all of their signature moves on, the different guys, nobody was chanting that. Everyone was like, oh, wow, these guys are here to play.
We were just in awe because they were good. They were really, really good. Yeah.
They're really good. There's two things I have to say. One, I think the fact that they came off looking so good as far as their work was awesome. I thought this was a great way to kind of introduce them to the crowd and kind of like build some intrigue. And I thought it was really cool how the minions kind of formed a throne and Evil Uno sat upon it. I was like, that's really cool.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do have a criticism where it's like, well, two things. One, you brought in the Super Smash Brothers, and they didn't have a super high caliber look to them. They kind of look like a low budget sort of indie tag team. So not only did people not know who they were, but they didn't look like players until they started showcasing their work. And I feel like if you're going to introduce them for the first time on a national stage and you're going to give them like sort of a new look, maybe make it a little more high, like big league looking. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That is a solid point. The only thing, like when people are asking, why would they bring in people that someone that know the positive, I count it because I'm really good at spinning the positive. Now you got to ask. You got a whole bunch of people that have to ask that question. Now you got to watch BTE Road to get more information about who these guys are, which is good.
Trust me, if you don't know who the Super Smash Brothers are and you're listening, they're one of the best tag teams in the world that nobody knows about. And I guarantee I'll put my money on that. They're incredible. I know Jeremy Donovan's listening, my co-host, and he is a Super Smash Brothers mark. He loves those guys. The other thing, though, that I thought was a slight negative about the way they brought them in, it was like, again, nobody knew who they were, and there was nothing to kind of announce to anybody exactly who they were. It didn't even seem like the commentary team was very familiar. So you can spin that positive that you just mentioned, and it's like now that we know, we kind of have to figure it out. But I feel like there's a better way. I feel like when you're introducing a new character to somebody, you kind of have to cut out some of that work for them and say, like, this is who we are. Maybe give them a mic for 2 seconds and have them say who they are. Maybe have a vignette that plays before they appear in the ring that lets people know what's going on. Instead, nobody knew who they were. And so those are my two problems. Like, nobody knew who they were, and then the look wasn't great. But everything else about this was awesome.
Yeah, completely agree. I can't really deny any of your points because they were points that I heard made. Like, who the hell are these people? No one's gonna know who they are, and it's just and they look like, seriously, I kept hearing they look like they just went and bought their stuff at Walmart and then came out and wrestled. So I heard these are criticisms I heard, so they are obviously valid, from the audience or whatever. And like I said, I look forward to seeing them more in the future because when I saw them actually do moves, they impressed me. But yeah, this was kind of a big moment. Another introduction, and they were doing good spreading out the shocking or introductory moments. So I thought it was a solid match. Definitely, the introduction could have been better. Definitely could have been better. But I thought this was pretty cool.
Well, before we move on, and one thing we need to consider here. So, in this promotion already, right now, we have the Best Friends, we have the Lucha Brothers, we have the Young Bucks, we have the Super Smash Brothers, we have Angelico and Jack Evans. I feel like there's other tag teams that I'm forgetting aside from these 5 that I just named.
Really?
Are there not other tag teams aside from those 5?
Let's see. Lucha Brothers, Young Bucks. Private Party.
Private Party.
I
feel like already, right now, given just the level of talent that's here, that we've just named. Oh, and then, Dustin and Cody.
Right.
We'll talk about that here in a moment. But, already, I think you have a strong case that the best tag team division on the planet is already in this company after one show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Their tag teams are amazing. Plus, they care about tag team wrestling. And they gave, all the tag team matches had time. From the 6-man to this tag match to the last tag match we'll talk about later, they all had time. They were all able to just lay it out and perform the way they want to.
Oh, SCU and the Strong Hearts.
Yeah. Are T-Hawk and Lindemann tag team, or which 2 of them usually tag up?
I don't know that much, but I could say you could put any of those combinations together and you've got a tag team there. So you're talking about those 5 plus the Private Party, that's 6, plus the Strong Hearts, plus SCU. You got 8 of the best tag teams in the world right now already on the roster day one. They have the best tag team roster in all of wrestling. They
really do. And I can't see any team in the future, hopefully LAX, maybe if the Revival, they get their release or whatever. I think it's only going to get better. I think it's only going to get better. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. This next match, a 6-woman tag match, and forgive me if I pronounce any of these names wrong, or do you want to handle it?
I can handle it. It's fine.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So we had the team of Hikaru Shida, Ryo, and Ryo Mizunami taking on the team of Aja Kong, Emi Sakura, and Yuka Sakazaki. Okay,
so first impression from someone that has really never seen any of these people wrestle. The Emi Sakura, she came out like a Freddie Mercury gimmick. I thought that was pretty cool.
That was awesome.
Yuka Sakazaki immediately was my favorite out of the 6. That energy, how she came out. She kind of looks like I don't know what, I wouldn't call it a genie or whatever, but it's a weird look. She looks like
she's like the most adorable wrestler of all time.
Yeah, and I was in love immediately.
When she came out, James Boyd started to make a joke, and he was like, Yuka Sakazaki against, and he couldn't name who it was going to be. I think he was going to say against Kylie Ray, but he was like, would be the most adorable match ever. Who is it? And then he couldn't name, and I was like, Joey Ryan. And he's like, no, it's not. And I was like, but that'd be pretty adorable. But she was just a beam of sunlight and energy and happiness. She was awesome.
Yeah, Hikaru Shida, is she a big? I mean, I've seen them, announce her and everything, but she's a big deal, right?
Bro, we talked. I was on the episode where we announced her, and we talked about her and everything. And
Dude, yeah. So I was just saying she came. I'm just talking about the entrance. She comes off like a big deal. She looks, like she comes off as, oh, she's gonna be one of the people competing for the championship, like without knowing like a lot about her.
I agree with that. I'm not, like I've said on the show before and in the past, I'm not a huge Joshi, wealth of knowledge. Probably the most knowledgeable Joshi expert on the Social Suplex Network is James Boyd. But that being said, from what I've read about her and what I've seen, they're going to push her. Like, she's one of Kenny's favorites. They, plan to present her like a star, and they did a great job of that in this match. And, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see her and Britt Baker when it comes down to crowning their first, women's champion.
Yes. So, points I saw, Sakazaki can sell her ass off. Like, the way she sold everyone's moves made it look so much bigger than it was. Her selling just stuck out from the beginning. Aja Kong, if I saw her in the alley, I would walk the other way. She scares me, and I
love Aja Kong.
I heard some people saying she looks slow. I'm like, I mean,
she's old.
She's old, but she's badass. It's like if you hit someone right, you only got to hit them once. That's like, dude, that's how she comes off.
Earlier that day, we had a marathon of wrestling watching. Me, Jeremy, and our friend Jamie, and we just watched tons of wrestling. And we were picking matches, and I had them watch the steel cage match from 1990 in All Japan Women's from between Bull Nakano and Aja Kong. It is my favorite Joshi match of all time. And they were like, what did I just watch? That was so violent. And I was like, dude, trust me, I know. But Aja Kong, dude, she's 48 years old and she can still go.
Yeah, Jim Ross put over. So that match versus Bull Nakano, not that specific match, but the matches against Bull Nakano, Jim Ross actually put that over as something that everyone should watch. So
I agree.
So that was kind of funny that you picked that specific match. I just thought this was like super athletic. Like, I'm gonna be honest, and everybody, you can look down on me, hate me, whatever. When I watch women's versus men's wrestling, there's always like I kind of lower the ceiling at times.
You mean intergender wrestling?
No. In men's wrestling, when I watch a men's match and a women's match, but this one raised the ceiling. Yeah, to me, it's gonna make my expectations of what women's wrestling is in this in AEW. It has to step up because this match was freaking amazing to me. It was
great. It was so great.
Yeah, and they hit so hard and moved so fast.
They hit very hard. They were moving very fast. They had a lot of entertainment value. Everyone played their role so great. Rio was a definite star of the match. She was the biggest woman on the side that was opposite of Aja Kong, and kind of seeing her and Aja Kong go against each other was awesome. There was a lot of false finishes and just the work rate was super high. I'm trying to wonder in my mind, when was the last time that a major North American promotion showcased Joshi wrestling? And I feel like we haven't seen it since the mid-90s in WCW in its full, true self, the way that we saw it here.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, I was kind of blew away by this. I didn't know what to expect. I was like on the fence of whether to try to go to the bathroom during this match.
Oh, that would have been a mistake.
And it would have, but I stayed and watched it. And I've watched this match all the way through twice since I watched it live. I've watched this match more than any of the other matches.
Did you see the controversy? And I don't know too much about it. I've heard different things about Jim Ross saying through StarCast that he didn't know why this match was even on the card. I've heard some people say that was taken out of context, and other people criticize him for saying that. Do you have anything to kind of say about that?
I don't. I heard someone say it in passing, and I was just like, I just figured that was an accident because he's been very positive about everything being new. If you heard how he put over the people in this match, you would never think he had a problem with it. So I'm just guessing that was either something he said out of context or misspoke. but I did not hear it from him myself and everything that went around it.
There was also speculation that this match was canceled. That kind of rumor caught wildfire on the internet prior to the show going live, because when they were showcasing several of the matches, this wasn't displayed as one of the matches when they were going through the card. But I also noticed that Best Friends and Helico and Jack Evans also were not showcased. So we were sitting there, and people at the party were like, I think the match is canceled. And I was like, well, then so is Best Friends and Helico and Jack Evans. I think they're all still on the card. They would have probably announced something. But people were going crazy on the internet saying, like, oh, the women's Joshi match got canceled. And I was like, I don't think it is.
Yeah, I think that was all. I mean, I know the Joshi match was going to happen, but I think a lot of the confusion what happened when one of their main matches got moved from the card and they just started moving everything around. Hangman and Pac, I think, caused a lot of confusion because that was such a big thing that they were building it up to. I mean, most of the episodes of BTE had the Hangman and Challenge and Pac on it. So when you take out a big gut of the show and say, hey, let's readjust, I think a lot of stuff got kind of affected by that you wouldn't normally think.
It's funny that, like, women's Joshi hit their apex in two different periods. In the mid-'80s, with, like, the Crush Gals and that whole entire scene with, the popularity of what was going on over there, and kind of, like, the American exposure to, like, the Jumping Bomb Angels in the mid-'80s. Mm-hmm. They kind of hit, like, a popularity apex. But in the 90s, especially in the mid-'90s, with what was going on with All Japan Women's and Gaia, they hit what most people consider to be the apex of their working style at that time and place. And, as great as – and they're in a renaissance period right now, but when you look at the kind of work that was being put on by All Japan Women's in the mid-'90s and some of those, like, Dream Slam, like shows, and they were selling out the Tokyo Dome, there's no denying that the match quality was even at a higher level, believe it or not, in the 90s than it is now. And it's taken till 2019 for Stardom to, like, really, like, start to catch on here in the States. And even still, most people don't know about, like, all the Joshi promotions that are going on over there with, like, Sendai Girls and Wave and Tokyo Joshi Pro and, like, all these different companies. And suddenly AEW gets this platform and gives, exposure to something that's been going on for, since the 50s. Joshi's been a thing, and people don't, there's all this controversy online, being somebody who covers New Japan every 6 months when WWE fans who don't like, New Japan, there's always this controversy about the fact that, New Japan doesn't have women's wrestling. They don't understand the climate or the history of Puroresu, and they don't even understand the whole entire culture behind Joshi. But there's always this, controversy like, well, they don't have women, but they don't even know about what's going on. And I feel like suddenly with this one show, all of a sudden the Western audience has suddenly been exposed to what's been going on for 50, 60 years for the first time in many cases.
Absolutely. I mean, this is me. I wouldn't say it's the first time for me, but this is my reintroduction over the, the little sprinkles that I've seen. And like I said, I was, like, blown away, as in, like, oh my God, these women are so good. And it was just, I'm looking forward to seeing it more. I mean, I literally came out, like, hungry to see more of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This match was, in some ways, a seminal match in this style. I feel like, and I said this while I was watching it with my friends, I was like, people are going to look at this match the way that we look at those early matches between Ray and Psychosis, the ones from ECW, as well as the Bash at the Beach match, how, like, that kind of, even though Lucha had been exposed in some regards to the Western audience, it was like suddenly, oh my God, what is this that we're seeing? It's new, it's fresh, but it's really not. It's just your first exposure to it. I feel like that's what this match is going to be as far as being a feather in the cap of AEW, but as far as being an exposure to Joshi wrestling for the Western audience who maybe isn't as aware of what it is or that it's been going on, and how great women's wrestling has been in Japan for all these decades.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I'm starting to try to catch up, but I am doing something, like I said, which is weird. Like, I know a lot of people, a lot of us wrestling fans will go out and, they'll see someone they like, and then they'll go to YouTube and watch hours and hours of stuff that they want to watch. And to them, I say, congrats. With me, I like it being fresh for me. So yeah. I like it being new to me. So I'm just going to let them, whatever AEW presents is what I'm going to watch and let it be new.
Remember you and I actually had we had a really good episode a few months back when we talked about we discussed briefly the stuff that had gone on at the New Japan Ring of Honor show. We talked about the beautiful people, and we talked about, and at that time I had been like, but Floyd, Ring of Honor has access to all these women from Stardom. And you were kind of like, at the time, you were like, yeah, but the beautiful people. And I was like, no, you don't understand. They have access to Joshi women. And now suddenly, like, does this exposure kind of like change your opinion on like the fact that they haven't been showcasing what they actually have access to?
Yes. And what I saw in ROH kind of ruined it, because they had the really good Joshi talent, but she was working against someone that wasn't good.
Yeah. Well, are you talking about Sumi? Oh, you're talking about not Sumi Sakai, but you're talking about
Kelly Klein.
Kelly Klein against who she wrestled?
I forgot who was the champion just recently. Who did she beat for the title at the show we were at?
I know her name, but I just forget names all the time. Oh God, I'm gonna pull it up. Mayu Iwatani.
Yes, and Mayu Iwatani is considered one of the best or better wrestlers in the world. But as much as Kelly Klein is very nice to me and very lovely, she is not on her level. So I did not get to see how good Mayu Iwatani was, because she was in there with someone that was not good. And that's about as negative as you'll ever hear me get with someone. But like I said, I don't think I got to see how good she was, because her dance partner wasn't as good as she was.
She's incredible.
Yeah.
She's incredible. But we should move on. But this match was really, really great. Everyone really played their role well. The funny thing is, like, the girl who they want to showcase the most, Hikaru Ishida, she didn't do much in the match. They kind of were, like, saving her to a degree.
Yeah, she hit that flying knee that looked amazing.
Ooh, that V-trigger.
Yeah. Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, but the next match, I'm gonna let you mostly talk about this one, because, it's a lot of emotions here. It is the match of the night for me, the match of the year. It was the brother versus brother. It was brother versus brother. Dave Meltzer gave this match not one, not two, but not three, like he's called 3-star special. Not 4, but Cody's first ever 5-star match. The first ever 5-star match in AEW history. It's Cody Rhodes versus Dustin Rhodes.
Oh my God. You know what? Now that you say that, that's crazy. How many companies have waited so many years to get a 5-star rated match, and they hit it out of the park night 1?
5 stars. 5-star Cody. Cody 5 stars, if you will. So we got him in the ring, and then you first get the chant, Dusty. Okay, that got me into it right then. I was like, oh my God, okay.
Dude, you were into it months and months ago, and you didn't even know who the opponent was, and you were into it. So don't try to tell me that the Dusty chants. You've been into it for months.
It's at the tone. It's at the tone of the match. Seriously. This match was built the best. It had the big fight feel. It seriously was like, there was no title on the line, no title shot on the line, but this match felt like it meant the most. And that's
not true. there was a title on the line. Dusty's favorite was on the line.
Oh my God, Dustin, when he busted out that shirt, I was like, oh, that's just wrong. And I did a meet and greet with Dustin on Thursday, and I had a Dustin shirt on with the Cody shirt.
And you told him, kick Cody's ass.
And I had Dustin's shirt on, but I had Cody's shirt under it for when I took the picture later. So I was the only person apparently wearing a Dustin Rhodes shirt. And he's like, finally, somebody's wearing my shirt. And I was like, we take the picture, and he's talking to me. And the guy says he has a Cody shirt under it because I had said it. And he's like, do you really got a Cody shirt on? I was like, yes. He's like, but who's you rooting for Saturday? And I was like, I look him in the eye, and I say, I'm just rooting for a really good match. And then he saw,
oh my God.
And then he saw the back of my phone, which is a picture of me and Cody on the back of my phone. So he knew I was completely full of shit at that point.
Bro, I'm laughing and smiling so hard right now. My face is hurting. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. So,
I gotta tell you, like, I've never in my life met as much of a Cody fan as you. It's hilarious.
I am the second biggest Cody fan I know. I would be remiss not to point out the queen of the Nightmare Family fandom. Her name is Tiffany, and she's actually like all elite Tiffany. She's on everything. If you're looking at the wrestling match, she is the blonde chick in the first row, reacting to everything. She like put her hands over her mouth after Dustin got busted wide open, and the cameras.
We saw her.
Yeah, she is the biggest Cody fan in the world,
dude. All throughout the night, there were so many people that were featured on the show that I was like, we would see them, and I'd be like, as heard on the Social Suplex Podcasting Network, and there were so many people like that.
Yeah,
but we saw Tiffany. I was like, oh, there's Tiffany.
Yeah.
As heard on the Social Suplex Podcasting Network.
Yes, I told you. I was like, a big thing with me is on this show, I try to focus on the fans of AEW. I could definitely do interviews with the wrestlers, but the fans is what's going to make this special, and she's one of them, and she's awesome. I like I said, I thought I was a big Cody fan, then I met her. She puts me to shame. So it was this match started with the Dusty chant. They start off like traditional wrestling.
I think we should talk before that. There was a controversial moment.
Oh shit! Oh my God! How did I stop that? You go. Tell them what happened.
So Cody comes out, and he has an incredible entrance. And as he's walking out, we see this throne of stone that looks like something out of a Conan the Barbarian, comic with, it's got spears with skulls on them and a giant cross in the back. And you immediately think to yourself, oh my God, this is an allusion to Triple H, the game. And Cody looks at it and walks right past it, and I immediately was like, Cody's going to destroy this thing, because the story going into this match, a lot of it was the fact that Cody was using his brother, and he mentioned this in his promo leading up to the match, that Dustin represented the Attitude Era, this era that was so heralded as being the preeminent representation of wrestling, but was never as good as what is actually happening now. It's all based on reputation, and that Cody was going to end the Attitude Era. Plus, there's the backstory of how time and time again throughout the years, as much goodwill WWE has built with the Rhodes family, the truth is they've always been competitors. They've always done things to screw with and screw over the Rhodes family. And so there's got to be just a tinge, just a hint of animosity when it comes to this project. And we've heard Cody time and time again for months and months say, we're not competition, and we're just an alternative. But then as the time has gotten closer and closer, we've heard disparaging remarks, we've heard little hints here and there. Suddenly he comes out and we see this giant monument to the Attitude Era, to Triple H, to his walk and brawl style of wrestling, to him being a part-timer that kind of kept the young talent who was promising and who was up and coming in WWE, like Cody, down. And now Cody's this giant megastar outside of WWE, and there's this giant representation. He walks right past it, and I was like, he's really going to just ignore it and walk past it? Then when him and Brandy, who, by the way, Brandy had another wardrobe change at this point in the show, which was amazing. They get down to the ring and she peels back the apron. She pulls out a giant sledgehammer, and I was like, all right, Cody, here we go. And Cody runs back up the freaking rampway, walks up to that freaking throne, hits it with the sledgehammer, and it just implodes. It explodes. There's pyro. The smoke goes everywhere. The throne falls to pieces, and then he comes back down. I was like, yes. Oh, my God. This is pro wrestling.
Yeah. To still align with Ric Flair, with a tear in my eye. And the moment he grabbed that sledgehammer and I started to see him walk back down that aisle, I knew what was going to happen, and it was like a tear of joy literally rolled down my face because the shot had to be fired. I mean, and it was like there was a lot of wads of paper. There were a few rocks thrown, but this was the shot heard around the world. This is what every AEW fan, like the hardcore fans, wanted. We didn't want an alternative. We didn't want this friendly thing. We wanted a war, and that was the first shot of the war. Cody says, "Hey, bitch, it's on." In one shot.
I hope both of these companies thrive.
Me too.
I hope both of these companies survive and do well. But let me tell you something. If hypothetically AEW goes under in 10 years, can you imagine how amazing this is going to look on one of those WWE produced specials?
Yeah.
When they're like, the first shot was fired by Cody Rhodes when he took aim at the game. This is akin to Eric Bischoff standing in the middle of the ring calling out Vince McMahon to show up on their pay-per-view.
Yes. Man.
This was awesome.
It was crazy. After, I'm a fan of all wrestling. I make that very clear. My friend Dan's like, well, he's going against Triple H, and you're like, rah, rah, rah. And he's telling me to pick a side. And I was like, let me tell you, there is no side for me to pick. He's like, when it comes to war, I am the weapons supplier. As long as there's a war going on, I win. Because if AEW is putting out this amazing product and WWE has to start readjusting and putting out amazing product, now I'm getting two amazing products. Why would that piss me off? Why would that piss any wrestling fan off? I want both products to be better. WWE is barely watchable right now, and this is coming from a lifelong WWE fan with tattoos all over my body of them. It is barely watchable. AEW in one fell swoop has sent the warning sign to WWE that your shit better get better. And that's what I want to see.
Let me tell you something, and we'll move on.
Yeah.
There are fans who are, we like to affectionately call them the Fed Defense Squad.
Yes.
I think that's a funny thing to say. I don't really buy into that whole thing too much, but let me tell you something. If Twitter had existed in the 90s, and if this butthurt, notion of super fandom had existed in the 90s, people wouldn't have known what to do with themselves when Taz was running down all the competitors in WCW and WWF, when WCW was giving away the decisions and the results of WWF Raw matches live on the air. If if WWF was doing these Hulkster and Nacho Man skits during the mid 90s, people have very selective memories when it comes to the promotional tactics of all these different companies, including WWF. People that would have freaked out in the Twitterverse back in the 90s when WWF and DX showed up at Nitro with the DX army. These things that we're talking about were not negative things. They're not things that people who are fans of the Monday Night Wars and everything like that look back on as being negatives or ugly promotional tactics. We look at it as being like, this was the best era of pro wrestling. It was freaking awesome, and people nowadays don't want to seem to like relive that or believe that. They're like so afraid of this competition. And it's like, dude, this is competition. They might not be on the same level, but it is competition. They're taking a share of the market space, and we should embrace it because guess what? It's freaking awesome. This was such a cool – I know it was kind of hokey and it was kind of corny, but guess what? It was exciting.
Whoa,
and it got people talking. And it was exciting. And I was so excited they did this.
I'm doing the Usos thing. Whoa, 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 whoa. There was nothing corny or hokey about this. This was the thing. It was just like, if you have a moment from the night other than the one we're going to talk about later that you have to say was like, okay, this is what AEW is going to be. This was like the moment that everyone was talking about. I got messages from people on Facebook like, what did Cody do? And they're like, what does this mean? And it's just like, it got everyone talking. And I just like, I thought it was like, I didn't even think of it happening before, but after I was like, this was brilliant. It was
brilliant. It was brilliant.
And Cody came off as, like, the interest in everything is great, but he just came off as the star that he's always known that he was going to be. You know what I mean? How the crowd reacted to him. I'm like, it was like people that were back and they were like, well, Stardust, and that's what they referenced. And they was like, so Stardust is a big deal now. Like, that statement came out of someone's mouth.
And the funny thing is, like, Cody's been a big deal in New Japan and in Ring of Honor and on the Indies for the last 2 years, but the average everyday wrestling fan hasn't known, and now they're kind of like getting clued into what everyone else has been seeing for all these years.
He knows how to put on the show, but the match in itself.
I was gonna say, let's get into this match, and this match was awesome. So Dustin comes out with his new look with the half face painted red paint, kind of reminiscent to like his new look is similar to like his natural, like Dustin the Natural Rhodes sort of look, but mixed with gold dust. And I really kind of dug it, but he came out looking in fantastic shape. I mean, he hasn't looked in this much like he hasn't been in this good shape since like 2013. But there was questions about whether he could still go or not. And him and Cody come out, and they have a Southern-style classic NWA championship level wrestling match. And it was every bit of what I just said, a wrestling match.
Yes. I was big on the fact when this match was coming out that I was like, they've probably been putting this match together in their head for 20 years. Like since Cody took his first bump, they've been putting this match together. And I was like, my floor was 4 stars. I said it's going to, I said
That's kind of my ceiling.
Yeah, I was like, this is gonna at least be a 4-star match. Again, there's the Cody bias here. I have no problem admitting it. So I have no problem admitting it. They came out and they started off wrestling, and I love how they started off because Cody was naturally playing the heel, even though face pop all the way when he came out. Dustin was that old school. He was one step ahead of the heel in every move. He always got the advantage to the point where Cody had to roll out the ring, and it was just like everything I remember seeing in the 80s. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they had such a well orchestrated match. Even the early stuff at the beginning of the match, where some people are like, it's a little bit slow. This needs to pick up. That's what some of the people that I was watching the match with were saying, and I was like, dude, this match is good already. But what really amped things up was when at a certain point the turnbuckle got exposed, and Dustin was thrust into the turnbuckle. He fell to the outside, and immediately I said, Dustin's blading. I saw him outside. I know what a blade job looks like. I saw it immediately, and I was like, oh, Dustin's blading. Everyone around me was like, no, he's not. And even later on, when they did a post-match interview with him, they asked him what caused the blood, and he said it was when Brandy speared him on the outside, something about the cane that Cody brings to the ring with him with the spikes on it and with I guess it's got a bust of Pharaoh on it, that bust him open. But I saw him blade as soon as he had hit that exposed ring, turnbuckle there. But man, this was one of the worst blade jobs I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, he even, like when he had the bandage on, you can tell he went up and down instead of left to right like they normally do. Because he had the bandage on the next day at StarCast, and you could see it was like really big on his head, and it was like, yeah, he either really went for it and he just wanted it to gush like that, or that was some kind of mistake.
He peeled his face off, bro.
Yeah.
And there's some of the famous blade jobs I can think of in my life is like Sergeant Slaughter in the Alley fight, the Great Muta against Hiroshi Hase, which spawned in 1992, which spawned the term the Muta scale, which this was a 1.0 on the Muta scale. Eddie Guerrero in the bull rope match against JBL. Undertaker against Brock Lesnar in the Hell in a Cell match in 2002. Am I missing any other like famous blade jobs that you can think of?
Not off the top of my head. Those are all great, though.
Oh, Mick Foley in the King of the Death match in 1995. This was on that level, but this might have been worse than all of those. He never, through the course of this match, and this match had a lot of time, at no point during this match did he ever stop bleeding. They went 22 minutes and 28 seconds. It just kept pouring.
Like it was a part. A guy went and got a beer and came back, and he's like, so is Cody bleeding too? I was like, no, that's not his blood. Because Cody was covered in blood. That's not his blood.
Also, if I was ever a pro wrestler, I would definitely have bleached blonde hair just like Cody, so that if anyone ever did blade, or if I ever bladed, my hair would be covered in blood, just like Ric Flair. That would be my gimmick, for sure. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. Cody was covered in dust, in his brother's blood. And this match was so emotional. I counted like 4 or 5 times where both of them, throughout the course of this match, at separate occasions, started crying. These guys were crying through the whole freaking match.
Man, yeah, and it was just like, it was so crazy because I thought the way he was bleeding, I thought they were going to do a ref stoppage. I thought that's how the match was going to end.
I thought so too. I thought they were getting ready to do a ref stoppage.
Yeah, because he was gushing blood. Earl Hebner's out there. Of course, that even makes it more 80s. And Earl Hebner's out there, and I'm just like, he's going to call the match. He's got blood on him from the wrestlers getting near him. I'm like, the mat's covered.
Another couple famous blade jobs. Stone Cold against Bret Hart, WrestleMania
Definitely,
13.
Yeah,
Shawn Michaels against Chris Jericho in 2008 when they actually outlawed blading because of how bad Shawn bled at Great American Bash, which was really, really bad. Now a couple things. I was like, nobody does blading in wrestling anymore. New Japan doesn't allow it. WWE doesn't allow it. They don't do it in Impact. They don't do it in any major promotion anymore. So the fact that they did it here was kind of shocking. But then, like, they didn't throw up an X. They didn't bring in a towel to wipe him off. Earl Hebner never put on the gloves. They treated it like a 1980s wrestling classic where they just let it ride. And it was so different from anything you're seeing. You know, we talk about these GCW death matches and Big Japan death matches, and they do way crazier stuff than this, you know. Thumbtacks and barbed wire and razor wire and all this stuff. They didn't have to do that here. They just had to let a guy gush. And it was so scary. I was sitting at the edge of my seat like, God, Dustin, please, someone just wipe him off. Like, I was so scared, man.
Yeah. I was genuinely, I was genuinely concerned for Dustin in this match. As far as, I was genuinely concerned because I was like, I think he messed up. And that's all I kept saying. I was like, I don't think he meant to do that. I don't think he meant to do that. Dude, there was a few spots, at times that it's like, I don't know. It's just emotional idea. They tried to pull off a Spanish fly, which...
Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah, and it was just like...
They didn't even do the Spanish fly, but whatever they ended up doing instead of the Spanish fly was just as awesome or even better. I'm not somebody who believes wrestling has to be pristine. Yeah. If guys botch in a match, I'm not like, oh, it's not 5 stars. Sometimes when guys have long matches that are strenuous and taxing, and you see things where they try to go for things and it doesn't always work out, sometimes that lends itself to the quality of the match, in my opinion. That's like the old school fan in me.
Dude, yes. I even say sometimes wrestling is way too pretty. And at the end of 20 minutes, your move's not going to look as crisp as it's supposed to do. The move is not going to look like it's supposed to do. I will say this. I wish Cody would stop doing the Din's Fire.
I like the Din's Fire, although he built it up as a super move, and it doesn't seem like he's ever beating anybody with it as a super finisher, so it's kind of dumb. But obviously, we did joke about it. I was like, yo, Dustin, when he was told he was going to take it, was like, yo, I'm not taking it the way I'm supposed to, because he took it like a flat back bump.
Yeah. And I was like, the last 2 times I've seen him do it, the person is taking it, and it makes it look really ugly.
He was like, hey, Dustin, I'm giving you the Din's Fire. He's like, well, I'm taking it as a flat back bump. He's like, no, I want you to take it the real way. He's like, hell no. Nah.
Yeah. He's like, dude, don't you know I'm 50? No, I'm not taking it that way. No, but
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, in the idea of the match, the fact that the dude's covered in blood, yes, he can't get a good grip on him. It made it look better. You know what I mean? Because he was covered in blood.
There are so many memorable spots. There was one point where Dustin tried to hit him with the curtain call, but he had him set up on the same turnbuckle, or basically Dustin undid the turnbuckle, so where he was like, if you hit me with the curtain call, you're going to break your foot on this metal underneath me, which was so smart. There was one point where Dustin actually caught Cody in the crossroads, and I was like, oh my God, he beat him with his own finisher. And then Cody kicked at it too, and I was like, they got me. They got me biting on all these finishers. The thing that elevated this match, beyond just the emotionalism of the 2 wrestlers involved and the backstory and Cody, Dustin, and Dusty, the crowd was one of the great. This is the best crowd for a wrestling match that I can remember seeing since probably Money in the Bank 2011, when it was Cena and Punk. I cannot remember a more crazy crowd.
Yeah, we were on
since that time.
We were on our feet after about 6 minutes in the match, and I couldn't sit down. It wasn't that it was like everybody was standing up, so you had to be standing up.
Also, I don't know if you saw this when you caught the pay-per-view display, but shout out to Amy Euler, co-host of this show, because they caught her crying on camera. Yes. And it was awesome.
Yes. It was funny because every one of our guests except you and Jeremy were on at some point on the screen. It was crazy.
Did they have Issa?
Yeah, Issa was right next to Tiffany.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, everybody was on, and it was just crazy. I was like, oh, yeah, there's one of our people. That's one of our people. And it was just crazy. And it was just and like I said, they caught every emotion Tiffany had the whole match.
You gotta wonder if AEW is even listening to this tonight. I hope you guys get co-opted and get to sell out and
yes,
bring me on. I'll definitely leave. I'll leave Keepin It Strong Style. I don't care about Jeremy. I'll sell out.
Yes, absolutely. I think Tiffany. Tiffany should be in the first row of every show ever. I'm not just saying that because she's my friend. It was just she went on the emotional roller coaster with the match, and her while watching it last night, her expressions told you what you should be thinking the whole match. You know what I mean? It was crazy. It was
incredible.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. This might have been, I've heard people say, like, what's the most emotional North American match you can remember where people are in the crowd crying? And, like, to me, the last match that had this kind of emotionalism to it was, like, maybe Warrior and Savage at WrestleMania.
Yeah, definitely.
Where people are literally weeping in the crowd at how incredible the story was. And ultimately, it came down to a moment where Cody hit Dustin with the crossroads, goes for the 3 count, gets a 2, gets up, hits him with it again, puts him away, and I was like, oh my God, we just saw a fucking 5-star masterpiece.
Yes. Like I said, my message said this match was everything, 5 stars. I knew in my life, like the way I felt it, that I knew it wasn't going to get actual 5 stars. I was like, yeah, it'll be like 4.5, 4.25, 4.75. So
I gave it 4.3 or 4.75 personally.
Yeah. And then when I pulled up Meltzer's, I pulled up the report this morning. At first I saw someone post it, and then I had to pull it up. I literally had to see it myself. And it had 5 stars on there, and I was like, yep, can't nobody tell me nothing. No more.
Dave gave this match 5 stars. On the Cage Match app, it's got 9.21, which is essentially
like a little over 4.5.
It's over 4.5. It's closer to 4 3/4, essentially.
Yeah.
It's been rated by 197 people, so that's a pretty consensus view and opinion of the people that rate on that website.
Unquestioned Cody's best match, like, period. I mean,
I said that, and other people that were around me were like, I was like, dude, this is the match of the night, and people around me were like, no, and I was like, this was definitely the match of the night. It was the best match of both Dustin and Cody's careers. I liked it better than Cody's matches with Ibushi, Omega, Okada, all his WWE work, his matches with Aldis. This is the best match of his career.
Best match of his career. Clearly, him and his brother. To me, I thought it was equal performance.
Yes.
I thought they both brought it and did what they had to do to get the 5 stars. Some people will say someone carried them. I was like, no one carried anyone. This was a complete collaborative effort, and it was perfect to me. I would not change this match at all. And man, yeah, this was everything to me. I don't know if he can do better.
At the end of the match, Dustin started undoing his boots, which you kind of felt like, oh, he's going to leave his boots in the ring. There was rumors that this is going to be the last match of his career. And Cody, who worked the proto-heel, he wasn't really a heel in this match, but he worked heel in the same way that, say, Bret Hart worked heel against British Bulldog at SummerSlam in 92. Very similar to that. At the end of the match, he grabs the mic and he's like, you don't get to retire here. You don't get that privilege. And then he said, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, and then I saw it later. He basically channeled Dusty when Dusty was going to tag with Dustin, and almost like he paraphrased, of course, but he said he put his name on that line. He put his name on a contract to wrestle the Young Bucks at Fight for the Fallen.
Which I will be there.
Yes. The Social Suplex in the building at Fight for the Fallen. And he's like, I don't need a partner. I don't need a friend. I need my big brother. And
the way he said it, his voice cracked at the end. It was such a real moment. I was like, oh my gosh.
Absolutely. I don't know how many people have pointed out the crack in his voice, how that added to it. I was already crying, so I can't say it added anything to me, because I pretty much figured out what was going to happen. And then they hug in the middle of the ring, both covered in Dustin's blood. I've seen this picture like 100 times. Issa got an amazing picture. Everybody should be following her because she got amazing pictures from this page. And it was like them covered in blood, hugging. And that was the picture of the night that should tell everybody everything. 5 stars. If the show ended right here, I would have been okay.
Yes.
Yeah, but it didn't. It didn't end. It had a couple more matches.
Yeah. One last thing, a couple last thoughts about this match. So when it was all over, they did a post at the end of the show. They did post match interviews, and if you notice, Dustin was cleaned up and bandaged, and he was fine. But Cody came out to do interviews at the end of the night, covered in Dustin's blood still. Hours and hours after the match, and I heard from Dave Meltzer where he said that that Cody was told in his younger years by Dusty that there's only so many nights in this industry where you get a chance to feel this type of energy and this type of moment, and it's like when you go to the showers and you shower off, it's all over. And Dusty said some nights you don't want to go to the showers. You want to stay in the same state of mind and in the same physical like presence that you're at, so that you can feel the energy of what you just did. And so Cody's in the back giving interviews covered in Dustin's blood, which is, some people might say negative things about it. Some people might say positive things about it, but it is interesting. You got this executive VP of this giant company now suddenly, and he's covered in his brother's blood. And it's like, he doesn't care about sponsors. He doesn't care about the way it looks. He's showing what matters to him. He wanted to feel that moment hours and hours after the fact, basically.
Yes. Absolutely. Incredible. Like I'm kind of speechless as we go. I think it's like as more we talk about it, the more I'm like, oh my God, I can't, I thought they were going to pull it off, but I can't believe they pulled it off.
Literally, when you say 4 stars was your floor, 4 stars was my ceiling. Well, I was like, there's no way these guys are going to do over 4 stars. And instead, they stole the show. They had the match of the night, and they had a match of the year contender, and they got 5 stars from Dave fucking Meltzer. That's incredible.
Yes, definitely. Like I said, it's just, I don't care about breaking the scale. 5 stars should be as good as you can get anyway. There you go.
I agree.
But that is, I'm very happy about this. But we have kept y'all here 3 hours, so we should probably start trying to get our last.
Oh my God, we got to jump through this. This is a long show. Oh my God.
Yes. So we got a couple more matches. Next match.
Right, so some other stuff happened. The show was over. Let's move on. Good night, everybody.
No, next match was the Young Bucks versus. Oh, we had the title presentation. Bret Hart came out with the title. He was introduced by some British comedian. I'm not familiar with him. I know he's supposed to be a thing, but I wasn't very familiar with the guy. But Bret Hart came out with the belt. And then they brought out Hangman, kind of just to be there with them. And then MJF interrupted and cut one of amazing promo, because he said he told Hangman that what happens when a horse has a broken leg, you blow his head off. Oh my God! He's like, you take him in the black and blow his head off. I was dying because he said it in the most violent way possible. You know how much people love their animals, so that was hilarious. And then he told Bret Hart that by the end of his career he will be, and he had to wait for the crowd to shut up because they were booing him so hard. He said, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. No, I won't, because that catchphrase sucks. And and if you saw, Bret Hart was smiling the whole time, because I know he hasn't seen a heel like this in a very long time. Hangman tries to attack MJF. MJF tries to leave. We then get Jungle Boy that comes out. A lot of people didn't know he was, but if you're watching on TV, they did put over that he was the son of Luke Perry. Then you had Jimmy Havoc having his back, and they get a physical with Jungle Boy, MJF. They all attack, and they go through the crowd. And then Bret Hart holds up the belt. What did you think of the belt?
I'm not in love with the belt, but I do like the belt. I think that the belt looks like an actual championship, unlike most of the titles that WWE not that I'm trying to bury or dunk on WWE, but I hate most of the belts they've unveiled over the last 10 years, basically. So, I did like their belt. I think it's kind of oversized, and I'm not in love with it. I was a little remiss at the fact that we didn't get a good shot of it on the live pay-per-view, the way that was one of the one criticisms I had about this segment. But ultimately...
Yeah, I think Brett forgot where the hard cam was.
Yeah, Brett didn't know where the hard cam was, but it was interesting that they brought Brett out here. It was originally supposed to be Ric Flair by all accounts, but, it was interesting they brought Brett out instead. It's kind of like a big FU to WWE to bring him out. But yeah, MJF was great here, and I really enjoyed the way that they kind of brought out Jimmy Havoc and Jungle Boy and kind of said, like, this is our upper mid card. You saw these guys earlier in the night, but these are the guys that you kind of need to be looking out for going forward. They kind of matter more. This is who you should. And MJF was just incredible here on the mic.
Yeah, he absolutely was. Point out this fact that they showed Mike Tyson in the back, then they had DDP, then they had Bret Hart. They had 3 WWE Hall of Famers on this AEW show.
Yeah.
That is crazy. And Chris Jericho, a former WWE champion. And then there was another former WWE champion. We'll get there in a moment. Next match, Bucks versus Lucha Bros. This is tag team wrestling. Let me say.
Incredible match.
Lucha Bros music. Oh my God. Lucha Bros, Mexicans, they say something in Spanish, and when they go through the lyrics, it's talking about how the money doesn't stop. And I was like, and it caught the essence of who the Lucha Bros are, because they wrestled this match, and then I had a match somewhere at noon the next day. They never quit working.
Yeah, those guys are everywhere.
Yeah,
right now.
Yeah, and they never quit working. I thought it did. And then the Young Bucks come out, and they got their Elvis because they're the greatest of all time thing. I thought their gear was amazing, and it immediately, like, everybody in the crowd got it. This is the greatest tag team of all time, and they had their belts. And then the referee saying, "I've known you guys a long time. This is for the AAA tag team belts. Let's get it on." And yeah, Pentagon and Ray Phoenix, they were definitely not household names before this match. Ray Phoenix is definitely a household name after this match.
Yeah, obviously anyone who's familiar with Pentagon, and if you're listening to the show, you probably are familiar with Pentagon Jr., Penta L0, however you want to say his name. And you know that this guy has charisma for days, and he's going to get over in this company no matter what, because he gets over everywhere. But on this night, the star of this match was Ray Phoenix.
Yes.
King Phoenix Jr. He was incredible.
Yes, literally, you would honestly think that they said, "Hey, we're going to get Ray Phoenix over right now," because it seemed like that's what this match was about. So many spots. I'm just trying to get to one, the one where he kind of the walk ropes, and then he hits the kind of like the senton. They was like someone he bounced to the bottom, jumped to the top, and then hit the senton. God literally said, "I've never seen that before ever."
Yeah, there was a moment where they did a sequence where he hit the ropes and he jumped up and did a back spinning crescent kick on one of the Young Bucks, and then he jumped up again and in the same motion ended up doing a Frankensteiner. It was just such a cool and innovative spot. That's one of the things that really stuck out to me in this match. Also, the way that they got over the arm break spot from Pentagon and really sold it like this is going to be a career ender. They really hyped the danger and everything that was going on there. The Young Bucks, though, not to kind of speak against them, they've been out of the ring for quite a while. Obviously, these guys haven't been working since January, aside from a few smaller matches that they did with this particular tag team actually during the Triple Mania. Or maybe it was Reyes de Reyes, I can't remember. But they they made that an aspect of the story that like they've got ring rust and that they haven't worked and they were missing some spots and were running into each other. And that was so smart the way that they worked in the idea that these guys have had some time off and they're not at the top of their game. They have to defeat this team that are road warriors that just go, go, go. They're working every night of the year, and the Bucks haven't been.
Yes, definitely. I thought that was so intelligent. You know, when they talk about the sports aspect of wrestling, I thought that really leaned into that sports aspect of wrestling. That Pentagon and Ray Phoenix was just a step ahead the first half of the match, and you saw where it kind of changed, and the Young Bucks were a little more advantageous. But even in the end, they hit the Lucha Bros hit their finisher. And the Bucks had to kick out, and then the Bucks tried multiple finishers. Special shout out to Motor City Machine Guns on one of the moves, and then finally, they hit the Meltzer driver to win. I thought this match was amazing. It got 4.75 from Meltzer, so you had a 5 and a 4.75 on the same show in the first show of a company.
I was a little lower on it. I was 4.5. My only real criticism about the match was I felt like they passed their peak and kept going. Everything they did past the peak was still incredible, so I can't really criticize it too much. It was an incredible display. But for me, I felt like the match went a little bit too long. I feel like part of it was that a lot of these matches went too long because they had to make up the time from the fact that they cut Hangman and Pac from the show.
Yeah.
But with that being said, this match was just so incredible. Also, shout out to Matt Jackson for hitting the brainbuster, the top rope brainbuster.
Oh my God, I popped so hard for that.
Yes. This match was awesome, man. And all the top 3 matches were incredible, but the Young Bucks end up retaining the AAA World Tag Team Championships.
Yes. Absolutely. They won, but Pentagon and Ray Phoenix definitely came out looking amazing in this match, and I imagine they got a few fans from this match.
They have announced a rematch between these two in AAA, or between these two teams in AAA going forward. So I've got to imagine that there's a good possibility that the Lucha Brothers will be regaining those titles from the Young Bucks on that card.
Absolutely. Last but not least, we had the main event of the show, Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho's entrance was dope.
Oh, it's incredible. Bro, when they start his entrance, and I'd heard on Talks Jericho how he was going to have a WrestleMania-esque entrance, and suddenly the lights cut out, they come back on, and we see the silhouette of Lionheart Chris Jericho, and I was like, oh my God, he's going to wrestle as Lionheart Chris Jericho. I bought in for a moment that he was coming back as Lionheart Chris Jericho.
Okay, yeah, I did not. I figured, I know, like, my first thought was, they're doing an ode to his old gimmicks. That was my first thought. It was like, I don't know. I mean, like, in the crowd, I said, they're doing an ode to his gimmicks, which I still thought was super cool. And then after Lionheart, they did Y2J, right?
No, did the list.
Okay, I thought they did Y2J. I thought
no, they did Lionheart Chris Jericho, and then the lights came back on, and it was the list. The list is Jericho with the scarf and the fedora and all that, and then the lights cut off again, and then suddenly we saw the light up jacket Chris Jericho.
Okay,
Y2J.
Okay, yeah, the light up jacket. Okay, and then last but not least was the current Chris Jericho in his version. He got a super pop. No one booed him. It was crazy.
And the funny thing is, we didn't even get all the Chris Jerichos that have ever existed. We didn't even get Y2J Millennium Man Chris Jericho from WWE. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't even get the current Chris Jericho that's been existing in New Japan, the crazy Jericho with the eyeliner and the face paint. You know, so it's like, we only got like a small taste of a few of his gimmicks. We didn't even get all of his gimmicks, which is the crazy thing about how this man reinvents himself.
But you definitely got the gist, and it was awesome, and everybody popped for it, and especially for people that hadn't watched wrestling a long time. They knew what they were getting at, which was awesome. And then Kenny Omega's music hits, and I guess it's some ode to a video game. Do you know what it was?
I forget what it's called. I think it might not even be a video game. It might be an anime. I forget what it's called. Something online.
Yeah, and he came out like a big deal. Everyone knew he was supposed to be a big deal, but not a lot of people knew who he was. Again, they did not do a very good job of giving the background on Kenny Omega being one of the best wrestlers in the world. That was, like I said, one of my few negatives on this whole thing. Is just that people didn't know Kenny Omega. Like, Jericho and Kenny Omega is this big deal. You know what I mean? They knew Jericho was a big deal, not Kenny Omega. But
I agree.
They get in the match. Personally, I did not think this match was as good as the New Japan match.
No, I didn't either. But I also I rate this match much higher than the general consensus online from most fans has been. I thought this match was excellent.
I had it at like a 3.5.
What?
And yeah,
I got a full star ahead of you. I've got it like 4.5.
And it was funny because Kenny Omega, because it's Chris Jericho, again, love Chris Jericho, love that he's with AEW. He has to slow his style down for Chris Jericho. I don't feel like people, even after a match, know who Kenny Omega is supposed to be.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I think they're eventually going to get that, but most people knew. When you know who Kenny Omega is, you knew his match against Chris Jericho had to be something different than what he usually does. But you had already seen amazing Kenny Omega. To me, you saw really good Kenny Omega, but you didn't get to see amazing Kenny Omega because I don't think Jericho could keep up with amazing Kenny Omega.
I did think it was very interesting that when the match started, I was like, oh, they're wrestling a straight up match. Because me and my friends have been joking for a while now that we're like, Jericho wrestles the Chris Jericho style rules match, where every match that he wrestles is a no DQ match, like the Braun Strowman style rules match or the Brock Lesnar style rules match. But in this case, it was a main event where it was a straight up one-on-one match. Now, they did have some of those Jericho tropes with the tables and the brawling outside, and they gave him some leeway, similar to, again, this being the spiritual successor to WCW. They used the quote-unquote referee's discretion. But for all intents and purposes, this was not a no DQ match. This was a straight-up singles one-on-one match.
Yeah, I don't feel like Kenny Omega didn't hit his normal 15 to 16 V-triggers.
We counted it. I can't remember the number. It was something like 9 or 10.
Okay, and but I love the code breaker calling them. I am not a fan of the Judas effect, but
I love it.
But I do like. I was gonna say, but I do like that it is a legit finisher. Like anybody that's ever wrestled or fought MMA, someone catches you to the elbow to the face, you ain't getting up. Like clean like he does.
So we had been basically speculating all night about the idea that maybe the Judas effect wasn't real at all.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just a red herring that he was trying to give Kenny something to think about, but it wasn't an actual finish, and that ultimately it was just something to think about, and it was something to throw him off his game. That proved to not be the case, whereas at the end of the match, after hitting Kenny with the code breaker, Kenny walked right into the Judas effect, was laid out 1, 2, 3. I think most of the crowd, one of the detractors of this match, a couple detractors, I think some of the things that brought the match down. One, this match had to follow the Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers and the Cody and Dustin match on a 5-hour show. I feel like it was a long show, it was a long match, and they had a lot to follow. That probably brought the crowd down quite a bit. Also, the pacing of the match might not have lended itself to being as raucous as maybe some of those other matches earlier. But then I think a lot of the crowd wasn't familiar with the Judas effect. Not everybody who was there is familiar with the idea that, you know, that Jericho was going to display this new finisher. But for many of us at home who watched and were aware that this was coming, once we saw him hit it, we were like, oh my God, he just beat Kenny Omega.
Yeah, and there was this hush over the crowd, and nobody knew how to react. Of course, you had the people that were there to see Jericho, like, oh yeah, Jericho was supposed to win, yay, Jericho! And then Jericho gets up, and he gets on the mic, and I was like, oh, the show's over, right? I thought they were ending it in a New Japan way
because everybody has to thank Chris Jericho for what he has done by building AEW.
Yes. And so and he got on it, and he's like, I want my thank you, and then you see a rockets in the crowd. Oh man, it was directly to my right, and like like a section over, and from the same curtain, the same row, the same. If this was a WWE event, it would pretty much be the same place. The guy formerly known as Dean Ambrose, Jon Moxley, makes his debut, rushes the ring, looks Jericho in the face, kicks him in the stomach, gives him the old dirty deeds. I don't know if that's what he's going to call him, but he gives him the dirty deeds, and then he lays him out. Goes picks up Omega, and I guess he gives the ref the dirty deeds just out of nowhere. I didn't even see that one coming.
That was such a Stone Cold thing to do.
He gives the ref the dirty deeds. Then he goes to pick up Omega and give him the dirty deeds. Omega, in his amazingness, pushes him out the ring. They brawl up to where the set is and the chips are. They get in a fight. They get on top of the chips. I'm hoping I'm not missing anything. I'm not trying to speed fast it. But Moxley then hits him with the dirty deeds on top of the chips, then does basically an attitude adjustment and throws him off of the chips through a table.
Just incredible. The way that they debuted Jon Moxley in AEW, it was something that people were kind of speculating whether it was going to be him or Punk at various points of the night. But once the show was over and Jericho landed that 1, 2, 3 and then, won the match, was on the mic, it did feel like that was the end of the show. I feel like it was so brilliant the way they debuted Jon Moxley on the show. Most people, even though we kind of expected it, we were not expecting it at all.
I was not expecting it then. I figured after he wasn't in the Battle Royal that he wasn't going to be in it.
Let me tell you what Jon Moxley is calling his finisher according to the New Japan Pro Wrestling website. His finishing hold is called Jon Moxley has made a huge impact upon the wrestling industry, adept in many styles, but earned his reputation as a wild brawler, reminiscent of many hardcore legends. And although not acknowledged as such, he is a true dark horse in the industry, both on camera and behind the scenes, whose microphone skills are reminiscent and rival that of a young Roddy Piper, and in-ring ability has captured a worldwide fan base. He is a WWE Grand Slam champion, holding multiple major titles, including WWE Raw Tag Championship twice, HWA Heavyweight Champion 3 times, HWA Tag Team Champion 5 times, FIP World Heavyweight Champion once, CZW World Heavyweight Championship twice, IWA World Tag Team Champion once, WXW World Tag Team Champion once. That is his finishing move.
What is his finishing move?
Everything that I just read is his finishing move.
Okay. Well, he hits.
What is wrong with this man?
Yes. Well, he hits the move, and he gets the pin.
He hits everything that I just said.
Yes, he hits everything, and he leaves him laying, and he comes crawling down. He passes me in the stage as he goes out. I mean, the crowd is completely buzzing. Everyone knows he's a big deal. He's the biggest, one of the hottest wrestlers in the world, if not in the world. I guess the show goes off. They come out, they cut the promo, get the crowd, almost excited again, and then Cody picks up Kenny. Kenny's like, I legit have a broken nose. I should be seeing medical attention, but Cody called me out, so he said, "Good night, goodbye, bang," and that's how we all left. And as far as the show. If this is stars, this was 5 stars. If it's a grade, it was an A+. I don't care what the scale is. It's at the top. It was one of the best times I've ever had at a show. It's the best show I've been to since All In. So
yeah, my final thoughts on the show would be essentially. Well, before I say my final thoughts, let me ask you this, because we're talking about it, and I don't want to move on too quickly. I know we've gone long, but as far as pops go, would you say that was the loudest pop you've ever experienced in your life?
Honestly, Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 30 was the loudest one I've ever experienced in my life.
Okay, because I've heard many people say that Jon Moxley appearing was the loudest pop they've ever heard.
It is too, easily, but I remember being in the Superdome that night and the building actually shaking when Daniel Bryan got the 3.
Wow. Yeah, that was an incredible moment. But it was like this thing where like not everyone was aware of the fact that he was coming out, and so you kind of felt it build.
Yes. And
throughout the arena, and it was such an awesome moment.
Yeah, they had me convinced the show was over, and it was one of the best shows ever still. And it was like, without this moment, I would have said the show was perfect. But it was like perfect plus. It was like after you have a great steak dinner, they give you the most amazing dessert you've ever had in your life that you can barely fit in. That's what it was.
My thing is this. I cannot, and I know that like we're comparing, whether AEW is going to be successful long term, there's a lot to determine that. There's a lot. But when I compare major, long pay-per-view shows, especially comparing it to the main roster of WWE, I don't think that there's ever been a main roster pay-per-view that has ever rivaled the level of quality and excitement and intrigue that we've ever seen from this first AEW offering of Double or Nothing. Nothing top to bottom compares to it.
Top to bottom, best show I've ever been to live. I can honestly say that. I watched it tape live, so I can't tell the live on video part. But as far as the atmosphere, the crowd, everything, it hit the note, and there was this energy of just rabid fans.
The only thing WWE has ever produced that can compare to this would be their takeover shows, and there's been quite a few of those that are legendary and incredible, and probably rival it, and probably exceed it when you're talking about match quality. But you also have to keep in consideration many of those shows are 2 hours. Many of those shows have 4 or 5 matches, and you could make the argument and say, well, the top 4 or 5 matches of the best takeovers probably beat the best 4 or 5 matches of Double or Nothing, and that's a valid argument. But it's not just about match quality. It's about fan interaction and surprises and match structuring and card structuring and intrigue. And the only real criticism, aside from the few small ones that we brought up tonight, was maybe the fact that the top 2 matches didn't exceed that one that was third from the top. But other than that, this is the best North American major wrestling card of all time.
Yes, and I completely agree with it. And in essence, it was funny because I can say, I mean, other than the crowd participation, it very much had a New Japan feel, as in how it built to the end. There wasn't a cooler match.
Cooldown.
Yeah, there was no cooler match. It was like, we're just going to keep coming at you, and we're going to try to beat that one, and we're going to try to beat the next guy. And there's no, hey, we're holding this back, so we're going to hold these people back so the end gets all the shine. No, dude, you better bring it. You better bring it. Every match tried to top the match before, and I love it, and it did, and it was great.
And even if the matches didn't necessarily top the one previous to it, what was amazing about this and what really separated it from a takeover or a major WWE show is that the style of each match was unique and different, and I think that's what makes it more akin to a New Japan card, in that nothing felt the same from what you'd seen earlier in the night. Everything felt unique and different.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it was an amazing show. And this is probably the most extensive review you'll ever get of Double or Nothing.
Our review is going to fuck up every other review that's out there.
And that being said, I am going to bump a few things to next week's show. We're going to talk about the Jon Moxley, Chris Jericho's interview next week. We're going to talk about all sorts of things next week. But
that's awesome.
I'm just going to leave the Double or Nothing. You have the Double or Nothing review for this week. Now, I want to say, Josh, I thank you. You hung out with me for 3 hours and talked about wrestling. I think our review was almost as long as the show, so that's awesome.
It's worth it.
It's definitely worth it. Please pass this along to your friends. Share it on your Twitter, your Facebook.
I don't have Twitter or Facebook.
Well, not you, sir. I was talking about the people listening. I know you don't have. No, the people. Like, no, if you sat through all of this show, whether in full or in different parts, if you need to break it up or whatever, just make sure you share it. Let your friends know this is the kind of stuff you're going to get when we got wrestling to cover, and that was really good. This show, I mean, for me, it seriously, I had, with watching Raw and SmackDown every week, and believe me, I'm never going to quit watching those shows. I'm not trying to, but it's been kind of a grind watching wrestling lately. And it was like, I wouldn't say I was getting burnt, but between that and trying to keep up with Best of the Super Juniors and everything, it was a lot of wrestling. This kind of reset me and rekindled and reminded.
I feel so reinvigorated and excited about wrestling right now.
Yes, it reminded me why I hook up a mic to a computer and talk about wrestling for hours every week. It reminded me why I travel 16 hours across the country and go to these places. It reminded me why I love this business, and I will always thank everybody at AEW for that.
Awesome. Do you want me to get my plugs in?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you guys can catch my show, Keepin It Strong Style, the best New Japan Pro Wrestling podcast on the internet. We are the Ace of Podcasts. We air on the Social Suplex Podcasting Network every single Tuesday. You can find us on anywhere that you listen to your podcasts, part of the Social Suplex Podcasting Network. You can also join our discussions on the Facebook group, The Wrestling Squared Circle. You can also catch us on at our Twitter, at KI Strong Style, as well as on Reddit. Jeremy, my co-host, he is the Pro Black Guy. I am Keepin It Strong Style on Twitter. Follow us, review us, listen to us. And we have a Dominion review that's coming up this weekend. Myself and Rich Latta will be covering Dominion review as well as Dominion preview, as well as a Best of Super Juniors finals, which will be involving both Jon Moxley as well as Chris Jericho on both of those shows. So give us a follow, give us a listen. Well worth your time.
Yes, I give their show 5 stars. As you can hear, Josh is easily one of the most knowledgeable people about wrestling that I know. That's why I trusted him to be on this show. He added so much color to everything we did. Make sure you're following us at AT Elite Pod on Twitter. You definitely want to enter the contest. Again, the like, retweet, and comment with your favorite wrestler from Double or Nothing. We definitely appreciate you. We'll be back next Saturday. We're going to talk about our StarCast review. We're going to talk about the Moxley interview. We're going to talk about a couple new signees for AEW. So for the Youngboy, this is Floyd reminding you, whether it's home, work, or school, always do your best to be elite.